Is corresponding here? Okay. Is corresponding? Because one reason that's that is because I have to step down to ask him to, I'm on the agenda and there's not a forum, then the decision can be made. That kind of waste my time.
But you got a quorum of three.
Okay.
And then we do have an alternate here this evening.
Okay.
So it's actually.
Let's see what it is. Yeah. And if it's really doing one, then it's also. Waiting for you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Are you ready? Go ahead and call this meeting to order if everyone would stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hold on, please. Roll call, please.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Chairman Patterson,
Here.
Mr. Winkie,
President.
Mr. Paulson,
Present.
and Mr. Van Doren.
Present.
Thank you. And Mr. Lund, is he?
It's not on the phone, so.
We do have a quorum. I
Chris
don't know.
might be the other phone number, I'm not sure.
The next item is recognition of visitors, and so I'll start in the front. If you'll just state your name and your physical address, we'll go this way, we'll do this side, my left, and then my right. So we'll start with the name and physical address.
Donald Voloshin, we've been coming to the valley since.
Just want you to know your address.
42 Sugarloaf, Silver Cliff.
Hey, I'm McDaniel, 42 Sugarloaf, Silver.
Paul Cook, 325 East Main, Silver Cliff.
Oh, you guys jumped right in the firing line. Your name and physical address, please.
Brian, live on Wyandotte Trail.
Stacy. Never. Why not?
Steve Cox, 93 Door Mountain Road. Peggy Collins, 93 Door Mountain Road.
Jackie Bean, 201 Rangeview Drive. Laura Bissett, 409 South First Street, West Cliff.
Oh, yeah, I'm 103 Little Chief Circle.
Robert Felty, 509 Ballard.
Leslie Parks, 85 Emerald Road, West. Trail, 1100 County, 60.
Linda Rosansky, 420 South Second Street, West Cliff.
You can see.
George Lowry, 404 South Second Street, West Cliff.
Chuck Yago, 310 South Fifth Street, Westwood.
Jerry Peters, 409 South Fifth.
Younger Drive, 11 Vermont Cliff.
And then, thank you all, if you guys that walk down the second row, what's your last name?
Hammer.
Hammer,
Like the
H-A,
tool? Okay.
like the tool.
And then Susan. What's it?
Like Cleveland, put her back to.
And then we have people.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and your physical address, please. Yeah.
Tammy Malone. I'm just back Tammy Malone, Tammy and Jack.
Okay.
56491, I'm 69.
Great. There's a couple seats right over here.
Yeah, I'm taking that too.
Thanks.
Do we have an FC?
There's a couple, yes. If you would mind stating your name and physical address, please.
Cynthia Gooding, 1455 Round Road.
Thank you. Okay, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting?
I'm sure we have people on Zoom.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can
Okay.
unmute them.
Okay, go ahead and they can state their name and.
Some of them are muting themselves, so I can't.
Elliot Jackson, Wet Mountain Tribune.
Mark Dotson, 150 San Juan Lane.
Michael Nuanis, 393 Navajo Road.
I honestly can't read any of that, it's a little far.
The other one is just a phone number, okay, 719-371-0993. Okay. And that's it, I think everybody else did.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting? Did anyone talk to me?
I have. I would move approval. Second.
Motions were made and then seconded by John, I think I heard John's first, to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
I
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 6, A, old business. Bianca Trenker presents signatures in support of affordable workforce housing and photos for perspective. If you'd like to come up front here, it's all yours.
Hello, I am Bianca Trenker. I am here to give voice to the people who cannot be here because they are at work or at home with kids after work or getting ready to go to their next job. For several days, I walked both towns' Main Street corridor with West Cliff's current proposed workforce housing visuals and statistics. From Rancher's Roost to Tony's and Willie's, I talked to the workforce to discuss affordable workforce housing. I am presenting you with 140 signatures with space for comments in support of the proposed affordable workforce housing, which could be located at south of the tennis courts on Highway 69 from the workforce. These
Could you
signatures.
speak up a little bit, please?
Yeah, actually, should I just do this? A little bit now? I'm gonna start there. I am presenting you with 140 signatures with space for comments in support of the proposed affordable workforce housing, which could be located south of the tennis courts on Highway 69 from the workforce. These signatures are more than just names on papers. These are individuals who check out your grocery, hardware, and dollar stores. They serve your burgers, fries, coffee, and ice cream, attend the gas station, they stock your evening beer or wine. There are also our community's teachers that teach our children. They are essential workers that run emergency calls for medical and law enforcement, as well as support for the medical clinic. I believe this is a community and citizen issue and conversation. Within the signature conversations, fears were brought up by so many. One point heard loudly and often in the conversation and at board meetings was the view and visual impact. As I've worked over the years in many fields with visual perception, and with that and with what the mind imagines and sees versus what visual reality is, I also wanted to offer some photos to help myself and others with some visual reference. Included are photos of buildings currently in Westcliff and the heights measured with a Bosch laser. I'm gonna kind of whip through some of these photos and we can run around if time allows. Ace is at 36 feet, downtown retail store, 36 feet, bootleggers, 24 feet, Sugarloaf, 36 feet. Grandma's 32, the condos at Granada Court, 24, the new Diesel repair shop, 24 feet. And the Baptist Church at 26 feet is particularly interesting. If it's possible to discuss that later. 3 photos are also included, marking the height of 35 feet measured by a drone hovering at 35 feet at the proposed housing site, taken from the closest view as seen by the highway, which could be encountered while driving. Also, there are some stats for elevation drops at different points on the proposed site. Why am I doing this when I am part of the problem? Is something that I have been directly and indirectly asked, or that has a unique position to talk about. I've purchased 2 commercial properties along Main Street Business Corridor. I've purchased one on Granada Court, a 5,000 square foot rec house for the townhouses built for the Conquistador ski area, zoned commercial use as well. I own no residential single-family homes. Once a property goes on the market for the sale price of $400,000 to $430,000, monthly mortgage alone is approximately, round numbers, $3,500. Adding on commercial property tax and commercial property liability insurance with a monthly allowance for property and repair and maintenance. At this point, monthly base overhead is approximately $4,500 if no repairs were needed. Every property I purchased needed extensive repairs and remodel of $150,000, $200,000 to $250,000, again, round numbers. Examples of the depth and dire need of these repairs are included for the board or committee, whatever we call it today. I will not read them aloud now in the interest of time unless requested. These totals, each property investment wise at $600,000 to $650,000 to bring it to current standards. For the properties I purchased and others like them in town to be long-term rentals, rents would have to be $2,000 to $2,500 monthly for the residents, which you can see following the map is no help to the problem and why I support this proposed workforce housing development. So I just wanted to read that to be in the 3 minutes.
Are you able to, or Caleb, are we able to put up the pictures that you were talking about so that the people here can see them?
Yeah, ladies, could you try to?
Hold on, we are.
Thank you.
So the only reason I included heights of different buildings in town is because we're all used to seeing them. And I wanted to know what's already in place that we see every day, but we don't really see anymore. There's a stretch of highway. And I took 3 pictures with a drone at the height of 35 feet, one at Yoder's Furniture, one at the intersection of Yoder's Furniture, and one at Hermit Park to give myself an idea. Now, the drone was hovering at 35 feet at its lowest proposed point, because that would make the most accurate. Depending on if the buildings do a fill-in or a dig, it will affect the height of what's closest to the highway. That's why I wanted to loop back around to the Baptist Church. The Baptist Church being at 26 feet, if the lowest point is 35 feet, the base of these proposed buildings, the land there already increases approximately 6 to 8 feet. 35 feet minus 6 to 8 feet is approximately, 26 to 28 feet. I did that math wrong, didn't I? 28 to 30, whatever, 20, you guys can do the math. So the point is, that view there is a 26-foot high building with a closer, from what I understand, and again, this is all proposed, so it could change. The setback for these buildings, I think, is supposed to be around 100 feet. This is a closer setback to the road, and the height there is 26 feet. I live on Granada Court. I took a Google, it's in one of those, Google Earth view of how much of the actual town will be in the line sight of these buildings and the mountains. My neighborhood actually is the closest to in-line view with that. In the way of I won't even see the buildings because there's other things in the way, the diesel repair shops or other homes, that kind of thing. And across from the diesel repair shops, there's no neighborhoods. So, yeah, so that's 1 block over from where I live. Those are 26 feet high, or 24, or whatever it said there, 24 feet high. So my point in doing this was, again, a lot of times when an issue comes up like this, people in opposition will come and have a lot to say. A lot of people directly impacted by this are at work. The signatures provided had a comments area, and I approached nobody not at work. Everybody was at work, working, or a manager of workforce, or the owner of a business. I heard a lot of stories I hadn't heard before. I hear a lot of stories anyways, because sometimes people call me and they shouldn't have to call me. I'm lodging in a hotel. I'm transition extended stay up to 6 months if you're lucky over the winter time. Summertime, we're too busy. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I worked my way up, and I had 1 property willed to me, so I had equity to invest in something else. I'm not a corporation. And I really think this is a community issue, so I won't go on and on. I know I have 3 minutes, and I just tried to explain some of the photos, so thank you. Is that getting the questions on anything?
I'd just like to add some comments.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I looked at the signatures, I saw 14 business owners in town, is that correct? Out of, and this is the only copy I have for 123 signatures. I don't know if I have 140 years, but I've not that I know what you do, but I did
The
count.
last ones were really relevant because they were managers at restaurants. I went back for those 13 specifically, or 17. Sorry, I get nervous, my math goes away. 17 more, because it was really key people.
So that's, quite a lot of business owners.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I was gonna say, thanks for all the work you've done, Bianca, and a lot of legwork there. Somebody just commented about they couldn't come to these meetings because they have to work. We as a board come to a lot of meetings during the day, and we have staff here during the day, and I think holding it later in the day, maybe we could move it to 5:30, but we have other people, staff, et cetera, who have families who have to get home and so forth. So this is when we do it. That's aside. But I think we all recognize the need for housing, workforce housing. And I want to change the term affordable to workforce, because that's really what our target is to get workforce housing for those people who serve this community, make this community run. As you say, teachers, nurses, law enforcement, staff at restaurants, et cetera, and a hardware store, et cetera. So that's the objective. And so I think it's a matter of how we go about achieving that objective or solving that problem. That's what I said. It's a problem. We're trying to solve it. And I think we're all in support of what you're saying. We've heard, and I want to interrupt what you're going to say, Christy, but we've heard from many people in the community, many are right here today, about the height of buildings and so forth and so on. And obviously you heard that too, because you have pictures of buildings that are over 35 feet high and you can still have a big view. So we're hearing all of that. We're trying to take that in as we can and yet solve the problem. So.
I'm not here to make problems. Honestly, I came to some meetings and it's just, in other small towns I've grown up in, sometimes when people have a problem with something, they show up, whereas to support, it's harder to show.
No, I couldn't agree more about what we need to do. It's how we do it, I guess, is what we're trying to get through here.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I want to take a second, well, one thing I would like to say is Like, I really appreciate what you put together, that information. I really wish someone would have taken the initiative to go up and down the streets and talk to the residents in Westcliff and get their opinion on how this could impact, you know, the people that actually drive these streets every day, because they live in the neighborhoods there in Westcliff. And unfortunately, no one did that. And I also would like to clear up some misinformation that I've kind of heard running around originally, and this has been a slow process. This is not something that's being decided overnight or anything like that. I think we had our first meeting addressing this issue was 2 months ago or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And so, and initially, a proposal, an idea, you gotta start somewhere, so we can't beat that up. An idea was that we could put very dense housing out in that south end of town and provide housing for, I think the number was maybe around 400 people. And I think everybody latched onto that and freaked out. It's an understandable freak out. I'm not saying it's not. Since then, we've worked hard, we've listened to citizens, we've had multiple meetings here. I mean, probably longer planning commission meetings than I ever sat through on town board, and really kind of chipped away at what we could possibly do, how we could satisfy the need, and take into account that it's not just Westcliff's responsibility to take care of this problem. So how can we do that? Also looking at the grant and how we can possibly look at that grant and what we can do in case we didn't get that grant. And so we really are looking at everything, and it's not just an overnight wham bam, it's gonna be done tomorrow. And so, and I also wanted to let people know that a concern that I have repeatedly heard is that this is just gonna be a bunch of Section 8 housing, and there's gonna be a bunch of no working folks in, and that's not helping the people that are needing the help, the people that do work on our restaurants and our stores and whatnot. And we have, in research and looking at other communities, we've discovered that, and I think you probably knew a little bit of this, that can be curbed by having deed restrictions and and setting things up so that you don't get to live in these properties unless you are working in this community, and you have to be able to prove that. So I know that relieves me a lot. And then at the same time, we also don't want to create something that's like, well, all the workers live over there and then everything else is for everybody else. We want an inclusive community, so trying to take that in mind also. So I just kind of wanted to bring people that maybe are at this meeting that haven't been in other meetings, or they're reading things, and just to bring you up to where we are and what's the truth of things. Did I miss anything? Anyone on the board? So, John?
It's not that you missed anything, but a lot of what we're looking at is based on a housing needs study that was done in 2022, March of 2022. So it's about 2.5 years old. It's still valid. In fact, the findings of that have probably just gotten worse in terms of our housing needs. This is kind of a two-pronged project. We started with looking at 6 blocks, I think, and we've scaled it down to 2 blocks now. We have scaled down the number and size of the apartment buildings that we're talking about. That's really focused on workforce housing, or the essential workers, the 140 signatures that Bianca has done going up and down Main Street.
We have a chat. They would like to know who's speaking.
Oh, sorry.
John Van Dorn, Planning Commission. Okay. So I just wanted to cover some of the things in that housing report. We look at the headline numbers, it's just about workforce housing, but there's some other issues that housing needs study brought up. And that study was done for the Cliffs, the two towns, Silver Cliff and West Cliff. So I'm going to go quickly through some of these things. Challenges that the town faces were only a mile and a quarter. So it leaves very little room to grow. That's one of the only sizable vacant properties to even consider a development like this. Obviously, we lack essential worker housing. That's a big issue. In the report, zero vacancy was the rental housing. So it's essentially, zero vacancy.
I do know Michelle Huck. She used to be a clerk.
Clay, could you please, mute, please?
Okay, well, that's Clay.
Yes.
Okay.
My apologies.
Excuse me, can you leave the meeting so we can have the host back?
Oh, yeah, just do that.
We may have to rejoin it, but sorry.
Okay. The other thing is, and this is data that has nothing to do with workforce housing, but there's a mismatch between available housing mix and the 80% of households in the Cliffs that are just one or two people. So we've got 80% of our households are just one or two people, and something like 80% of our available homes are single family dwellings, three and 4 bedroom housing. Big mismatch there between our actual households and our housing mix. Part of that is we've had a single family housing bias in our zoning going back decades. We had very little zone for multifamily or smaller units, 1 and 2 bedroom units. And that's driven our prices up. 25% of the homes in West Cliff are second homes. And that's tended to drive up the average median home price because we got people from Front Range in Texas and wherever purchasing a second home and only using it for 3 or 4 months out of the year, if that. The other thing is, and this is from the housing study itself, I just want to share that because I'm pretty sure none of you have dug in and read every word in that housing study, or maybe you don't even know it exists. Given the intensity, this is just quotes from that study, given the intensity of the problem today, local businesses are looking for immediate solutions. And I think the work that Bianca's done just recently, 2.5 years later, supports that. Without younger workers moving to town, the economy will be impacted. We're a pretty old community. I think everybody here is aware of that. 65% of the residents of the Cliffs could not, this is 2.5 years ago, could not afford the average price home. That number is probably north of 80% now. One of the bold statements that was in, and I think this is important to think about right now, the focus should be on building at least 40 to 50 rental units affordable to households earning 100% of the average median income or below. So that was 2.5 years ago. And the situation has only gotten worse since then. So we've got, I think, a crisis in terms of workforce housing. And we also have a bit of a crisis in terms of affordability for anybody living in the Cliffs at this point in time. So the other part of the project that is west of the apartment buildings we're talking about begins to address that part of our housing issues. So, we're talking about 1 and 2 bedroom units, duplexes up to a maximum of 4plexes. which is scaled down from the original project. We're also talking about, we've got, that property was platted 140 years ago by the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad. So to plat it for, let's say, an age that's not appropriate for where we are right now. So it includes alleys. And 140 years ago, alleys is where you put your horses and your carts and maybe your outhouse. But one of the things that we're looking at is leveraging that existing plat and allowing auxiliary dwelling units off of the alleys. And those would be typically 1-bedroom units, which would also likely be affordable for our workforce. And of course, we can't say that that's private property. You can't say that those are going to be rental units. They might not be rental units. It's just up to the private property owners to develop that, subject to the boundaries that we established in the new zoning for those properties. And a lot more to talk about than I thought.
We good, John?
We're good.
All right, so we'll go on to item B, which is consideration of recommending to the Board of Trustees the possible rezoning of blocks, discussion on 19 and 20, 33 and 34, and town-owned lots to multifamily district. I made notes, and we spent a lot of time in the workshop the other week, 10 days ago, talking about this. I don't feel, a couple things. I don't feel that it's the town of the town of Westcliff is not a developer, and we need to develop these or zone. That's what this board is here to do, is to talk about modifying zoning or making a recommendation to the town board, and the town then makes the actual decision. So we have to make a recommendation to the town. At some point, if a developer came and knocked on the town's door and said, hey, I have this vision to do whatever with these lots out here, the town could say, well, they're not zoned for that, but we can talk about a variance or a special use permit, or we can change if it's some great vision. Right now we've got nothing out there. So I lean in the direction, and as I say, I'm one vote, of being more conservative with what we say we can do there, only because someone could always come and ask the town board, this board, to do more with it. My fear is that we kind of go big and then we don't get the grant or something, and then a developer does come in and says, oh yeah, I can pay to get that infrastructure out there, and since it's so wide open, I am going to put 4-story buildings with, whatever is the most maximum that could go out there. And that scares me as a resident of the town. So I lean in the direction of, what we had talked about in our workshop was, you'd have to have a minimum of 3 town lots to put a 4-plex up, and then you'd have to have a minimum of 2 town lots to do a single family home or a duplex, or single family home with an ADU or a duplex. And just to give some understanding of that, if you have a house in town, you have to, and I'm talking in Westcliff, you have to have a minimum of 2 lots to be able, 2 town lots to put a home on. A town lot is 25 by 125, and so 2 of those you have to 50 by 125 to put a single family home on. So so what we had discussed in our workshop out there was nothing different really than what you can do right now in what I call town proper. So personally, I'd rather go a little more conservative and kind of have the door open for someone to come in and say, I envision this, and they can always come and ask for that.
I share those thoughts. We've had a lot of discussion in this meeting about like a 3-story apartment complex. And some of the argument is, well, the developer want to get as much housing on limited amount of space as he could, because it's more affordable. People who are opposed to it don't like the idea of how apartment complexes and so forth, and we hear everybody. So I talked to Caleb about just the town property itself, which is lot 34, half of lot 34, and then and is it all, and then a little triangle parcel there, which are those are the town properties. He actually did a plat view of that, did you not, Caleb? And send it to us, of duplexes and fourplexes.
I have some pictures of what it could look like, different architectural styles and whatnot.
So the point is, I think we could get 35, 40 units on there, dwellings, and it might be an apartment with 2 or townhouse with 4. But I think we could get enough on there, at least as a start, to see how this would go. We don't have to rezone the entire number of lots. And we could just see if we could get a developer in here to build those kinds of dwellings rather than an apartment complex. I think it'd look better from a just drive-by type of thing. It'd be more of a community, more of a housing community rather than an apartment complex where people would know each other, neighbors and so forth. And I think it'd fit more in the culture of Westcliff than something more dramatic, a bigger building. So I'd like to start thinking about that as a step in terms of how we're going to move down this road and see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll know soon enough. It does need water and sewer. There is water not too far from our property. It's not too far at all, and that certainly could be brought to the site fairly quickly and affordable. Sewer, I don't know. That's another issue that would have to be dealt with by Round Mountain. On the south end of our properties, there's all these lots. The south end of town, or outside of Westbrook, there's the Shiny Mountain Estates. All of those houses have water and sewer, because they bought water and sewer from Round Mountain, and they got a great big D9 cat or whatever it was, and they just pulled the pipe in from their house to a sewer line. And they have these great big, septic tanks with a grinder in them, and they pump it up. Now that's just one solution. I'm not an engineer. I learned a long time ago that you don't want to lift sewage, but we do it every day. There's a big sewage pump just on the west end of town that lifts sewage up to the storage facilities up there. So that's an aside. Yes. So what I would like.
So I'd like to get over if you could, please go to page 23 of 37 in your packet. For those online, if you're wanting to get to the Westcliff, to the packet that the Planning Commission is looking at, or those here, please go to the website of the Planning Commission and go to the packets.
And while we're getting there, we had a comment here, so I'm gonna go ahead and take that while everybody gets there. I think this is page whatever that one. Like, I don't see that in here.
Should be page 23 of 37 that I'm looking at now.
Okay, here we go.
So, time for public comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, I just had a question. You said that it was for the not lower income, I'm sorry, the workers that are here in town.
Yes.
Are we receiving or looking to get any governmental assistance from the state and or federal?
Well, the thing that's being looked at that we've been discussing is that there's possibly a DOLA grant, which is Department of Local Affairs, that would be written to try to help us pay for getting utilities out to that.
No, that's not
That's not my question.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Section 8, section 236.
Okay, no.
That's what we're questioning.
No, I'm questioning the fact that you're saying it's for low income people. For
No.
in this community, you're talking about not low income people, I'm sorry, I forget how you worded it. You said something about the workers, the workforce, thank you, I'm sorry. If it's for the workforce in this city and you take 1 penny from the state or the federal, you will not be able to say it is for our workforce. And you will be getting illegal aliens, you will be getting low income from wherever, you will have zero say on who you can.
Point of order,
So
point of order,
that's-
please. Madam Chair,
Amen.
can we please get to the objective at hand that we have been, that now is not the time for public comment. I would like to go over the agenda, and then once the planning commission is done talking about it, then we go to public comment. This talk about illegal aliens is ridiculous and.
And not if you take, I didn't say.
Very much, please, and very much off topic. So if we may, as a planning commission.
It's not off topic, we're talking about my community.
I-
And not, maybe not for
I
today, but
do
next month,
think-
next
all
year,
right,
10 years from
let's,
now.
Please.
Let's get it back on track here. I do think these are legit concerns that citizens are having, so we can't just ignore them. But we do have to talk about them. I mean, I understand we can get back to this now, but this is probably the biggest issue that I've heard from the people, not the people working, but like the residents, and they're saying, hey, you know what, we do know that we need workforce housing and we're in support of that, but we are scared that, exactly, and so, and I don't know.
Yeah, I understand that.
That's
So
what I understand that deed restrictions do to help with that.
But you can't do that if you take federal or state.
So that's what I'm
So
not.
as a town manager, and I apologize for interrupting, but I think it'd be more appropriate to stay on task, and if there are questions about the grant, I am very much well studied on it. So if you'd like to direct those questions to me, I'd love to answer them, but you know, I would like to stay on task if we may, and talk about the agenda at hand, and then leave public comment for public comment.
I don't even see that,
Or at the end of each agenda item.
I'm at section, I don't see these pages that you guys are, you're saying page and
problem.
23 or whatever, and I.
Madam Chair, Chris Lund would like to say something.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Chris, all right.
Yeah, I would just remind everybody that we're not looking at the end result here. We're just looking at changing the zoning. We just need to start somewhere, and this is it. We're not, right now, that's all I need to say. I mean, this isn't, there's nothing moving forward. We're just trying to set the zoning so something can happen. And there's still a lot of work that has to be solved. And we're just trying to make this first step.
Right, and that's, just to clarify for everyone, that property out there, and I don't know if anybody's gone and looked out there, it's a property that's south of Hermit Park. That is all zoned single family. To this date, no one has been able to put a home out there because there's not any water and sewer out there. So it's all zoned single family right now, but you can't really do anything, which is why you look at bringing water and sewer. And amongst that, the town owns 2 blocks. Is blocks a correct word?
Right.
And so
One.
so we are looking at, while we've talked about the other parts of it, maybe like Caleb said, we need to be talking about, Paul said, just town lots, and then we can talk about just rezoning that. And that's kind of where the discussion is right now, but I have none of these pages.
So if I may, can we get over to, and I can help you guys go to this.
I've printed out pages.
Christie, I just wanted to let you know there are comments on the chat, if you want me to read them or.
Go ahead, because I can't see that.
It's Michael Nunez, says how and why did a person in favor be able to present, but those of us opposed are not allowed to speak. She was allowed to speak, yet opposition is told to wait for comment. Question.
I don't, yeah, we do need to keep, I mean, she had actually gotten on the agenda to make a presentation to the board. And honestly, like I said at the beginning of the meeting, I would have loved someone to step up that has gone and talked to the residents and gotten that same information from the residents, but that hasn't happened. And so the only way we're hearing opposition is by being stopped on the street, people calling us, emailing, whatever. And nobody that is in opposition has asked to formally be on the agenda to formally explain their complaints. And so that leaves those comments to public comment. So. And for anybody that I'm sorry, I didn't say who I was. I'm Christy Patterson. That was in there. So someone didn't that I get asked like the people that are on their phones, whatever. So sorry.
Chris, might be important. Chris just talked. He's one of our planning commission members too.
Chris Lund, who is on Zoom right now, and he talked, he is a planning commission member who's not able to be present today. So, so coming back to the agenda, which is back, we're on this item B, and we need to work through. I don't have, I think I have the page.
I can direct you guys to it. It is the one. I just saw the red letter. So if you guys look at your packet.
I do have, okay.
If you look at your packet.
I didn't have it, so I couldn't find it, but go ahead.
23 of 37. So from what we talked about from the last two meetings, I'm going to go ahead and start to read off, starting from number 2, designation of lots. I have 2 examples here. So the town lot specifically, half block, and it just goes into the description, half block of 33 in the lots close to the highway shall be apartments and condos with a building footprint of not more than 7,500 square feet and 35 feet tall. To get a reference on 7,500 square feet, across the street is Yoder's, and they're roughly 85 to 9,000 square feet in floor footprint. Privately owned lots, blocks 33, 34, 20, 19 shall be, and I have minimum requirements. The minimum lot shall be a two-family, a dwelling 2-family, that's straight from our code book, of 2 options. 1, a duplex, and 2, a single-family home with a required ADU as defined in 317, and we'll get into that. I'll have to edit that is defined in 317. That just points out where I have the ADU code, which is on agenda item C. Both options must be built on a minimum of 2 lots. The maximum requirement for their maximum building size allowed shall have 4 units on a minimum of 4 lots, including ADUs. Now, I know that we talked about 3 lots, and considering, and we can change it to that, and considering the density, trying to build less on the density, to appease everybody, we can go from 3 lots for rather, we can go on 4 lots rather than 3 lots. So that's what I have right now is a minimum and maximum requirements, or we can simply word it like this. The minimum requirement shall be 2 dwelling units on a minimum of 2 lots and a maximum of 4 dwelling units on 4 lots. So
25 feet.
Yes.
25 feet.
Yes, sir. Yep. So that is currently what we talked about during our workshop. And that is what we have in front of us. The building review, again, so there was fears that people just come in and build whatever. It states all building plans and architectural designs must be submitted to the planning commission for review and consideration in order to allow for higher density and proper planning and aesthetically pleasing building practices as defined in 10.117. We can get into 10.117. That is just what you requested, and I think that's on new business, the affordable housing ordinance. That's what that kind of singles out. All right, so height measurements from the town lots, 3,500 square feet. We have the minimum lot area. That is just taken from our code book. All right, legal lots.
When you say minimum lot area, are what 12,500 for what?
That's for the town lot. So in order to build what was proposed, it has to be on the minimum of 12,500 square feet long.
And what are we talking, what was, it's like, this kind of contradicts, like, if we're looking at, you have to have two town lots build, one home or a duplex, that would be 6,250.
I understand. So the town lots, so going back, the town lots are singled out from the rest of the blocks. So that is why you see the minimum lot area for the town blocks compared to those of the privately owned lots. So if you're looking at it, right, town owned lots and then privately owned lots, and it really just reinforces what we just read about, right, talking about setbacks and whatnot. Does that clear that up?
Well, I'm just trying to figure out, so like, that's basically how many lots and what would be able to fill up, and so I'm just doing the.
Yeah, and we can, now that, we're talking about it, so we can obviously change that before, and I just inform you, we will need to take this into a vote by today's in order to get it to the board of trustees.
If we go back to my earlier statement about the townhome lots just being duplexes or fourplexes, no 35-foot building there, we could zone them accordingly, could you not?
We could.
Okay, so I would like to entertain that rather than, a 35-foot evidence.
Yeah, I think we then, if we're gonna switch gears to that, I think we should probably take a consensus from the planning commission from the town lots rather than doing the 2 units at 35 feet and scaling down to triplexes and quadplexes like Mr. Winky had proposed. Commission.
I mean, that's what I would like to do. I mean, I'm just one vote.
So you're saying rather than doing, so originally this 12,500 was going to hold, was it 23 units? I don't remember, is that, I didn't write
That
that down.
12,500 is taken from, and we can delete that, and we could just put NA because it's the town blocks. That 12,500 square feet is the minimum lot requirement for a multifamily unit in our current code. So I just copy and pasted that.
Oh, I see.
So what we can do for town-owned lots, right, on that section under 4, I can get rid of minimum lot area.
But if leading, and if what Paula's saying, what we could do on those lots is say a maximum of what, a fourplex on, like, what was the words that you used? That you used, Bob, when we were talking in the workshop, you said like a maximum of fourplex on, a maximum fourplex on a maximum of, and you say 4 town lots, 4 lots.
Is this for the town lots specifically?
Well, so what Paul is proposing, and like you said, he's one vote, so we need to take a consensus here, but we kind of need to understand exactly what he's proposing first. So he's saying rather than go with this, whatever multifamily would be, that we set it up that it's a maximum of 4plex per every 4 town lots, right? Is that what you're saying?
For those in the audience, a town lot is 25 by 125. That was plotted back in the 1800s, John.
140 years ago.
Yeah, 140 years ago. So before I was born. And anyway, so you really can't build anything 25-foot wide. So you'd say, all right, 2 lots is 50 by 125, and that's whatever it is, 6,000 square feet, and go from there. There's somebody in the back. Yes, Chuck is back here.
Well, Chuck Yago, I just have 2 questions. The town lots are different size than the lots in the residential section over there that are privately owned. Is that a true statement?
I thought they were all 25 by 125.
They're sliced funny.
Oh, there's like, in that one section, it's like 34, but it's like block 34, but it's just like a weird.
When you go to the ESRI maps from the county, you measure the lots people have in there, they measure 50 by 125. Something like that. So that was one of my clarifications. The other thing I have to ask, how many of the 25 by 125 foot lots are in the town section?
Do you know that, Caleb?
50 by 125 are in the town section.
25 by 125. And just,
Yeah, I don't mind answering that. Again, I don't think this is the appropriate time for public comment. I think we should, wait to the end of each agenda item or on the agenda itself, have public comment during public comment. But on those lots, it's roughly a block and a quarter. So 28 lots plus a few, so probably around 32 lots is roughly the size of it.
what the town owns.
With the town, because if you take those two triangles, put them together, plus the half block that we have, is roughly block plus maybe a few, so it's not much.
So what you're saying is there about 8 units of the size we're now talking about could fit on the town-owned lots?
Yeah, 8 units.
Eight fourplexes.
8 times, what was that, would that be 8 times 32? Oh gosh.
7 units.
Yeah, so that would be, I think you're correct, Chris, 32, like 32 fourplexes would be the most, based on what Paul is proposing on the town-owned property out there.
32 units split up in 8 buildings.
Yes. Right, right. It's like math. So that's Paul's suggestion, so we kind of need a consent, we need opinion of the planning commission.
Just one more point. You really need to replat that whole area in the town and vacate, especially 6th Street, because we're not going to bring 6th Street in off of Highway 69 into that area. A lot has changed in 140 years. So I think the way to look at the downtown property is a blank slate. And including all the streets and then you decide how you're going to do it. So it's very difficult to just look at our platted in terms of lots now and say, this is what you're going to get with fourplexes, because that's not how you want to do it. It wouldn't make any sense. But if someone wants to make a motion to vote on Paul's proposal, then that should be the next step, I guess.
And please, whoever makes a motion, put it in writing so we get the right legal description for our minutes, please.
Sure. And I don't know if we want to make a motion to that, because if the consensus of this board doesn't agree with what Paul said, then we gotta go back and talk.
So I think we should take a consensus then. Mr. Van Dorn, yea or nay?
I'd be a no.
No. Ms. Chair.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
I mean, those two questions, I like the idea of a blank slate so that when we have water and sewer there, whenever that may happen, then someone, some company, whatever, we can create something based on the guidelines of, that duplexes, quadplexes, and with maximum height of maybe 25 or 35 feet. And then that way, let them create the thing, because right now, with platted out, we have streets and alleys that basically will be non-productive as far as building goes.
Chris,
That's my opinion.
Mr. Lyon.
I don't feel that this gives us the workforce flexibility that we are going to need in the future. I don't think it's enough.
Thank you, sir. So ordinance stays as is.
It's not an ordinance.
It's not an ordinance, it's just being discussed.
He proposed
Yeah, see that,
ordinance.
those
So
are
that's
things
for
that
the
freak
board.
people out.
So at this point, it's not even an ordinance. They're just making a motion to recommend something to the Board of Trustees. And then that's where the ordinance is done.
So there isn't an ordinance in here. So that's why I said proposed.
Right.
Well, my approach, just to argue again for, is that it's a step. I heard what Chris said, and he says it won't provide sufficient housing, and I'm not suggesting that it would. I'm suggesting that, let's see if it works. Let's see if some developer wants to come in and undertake such a thing. And there's other things we might have to do to lure a developer in, and we can talk about that, maybe at another planning committee meeting, but I'm just saying it's a go slow approach. I'm a conservative guy. I like to plan ahead. And I just think rezoning a whole area is not the right step to take at this juncture. And let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we've just, put the town lots in this position. If it does work, it can always be expanded. We can go, we can rezone things to make it work, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what my approach would be, rather than just jumping in up to our air roots and saying, oh yeah, this is the ticket. We don't know that. We're speculating. Even the doing the town lots is a speculation.
Did Chris, were you gonna say something? Did I hear you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think that out though. I just don't think that you're basically making a proposal that will, in a sense, deliberately not work. I mean, it's setting up to fail because we already know it's not going to be enough.
Well, I don't know about that, Christy, you're saying that, and I could make the same argument the other way, that it's set up to fail.
Well, but we're setting it up and we still have flexibility in the future. It's not.
You under my proposal, you do too. Let's see if it works.
So if I may on that, just to bring some light to the situation right now, right, ask the board if we want Proposition 123, ask them if we want to use grants, and so now that's why we're here. When we have different legislature, we have different types of propositions, different types of grant funding available. So the reason why we are applying in December for what we are applying for is one, because of the time and the funds. I know for a fact that the funds for, based off my conversation with our DOLA rep, that the funds will go down for this type of grant. And we know that different legislature approves of different types of grants. So it's really important now, whether there's building right away or not, to get the infrastructure. Again, I used this during the last workshop, taking Shadow Ridge or Adams subdivision, for example, where these were made, early 2000s, maybe even some before that, depending on which filing. And 20-something years later, they're still not fully built out. If we have.
My point exactly.
Well, right, same evidence, different conclusions is kind of what we're drawing here. We have owners there in the single family district, which does allow for 2-family dwellings, having multiple lots. So with the zoning that we made in the workshop and that we talked about in the meeting before, we have minimum lot requirements, but no maximum lot requirements. So what we could have is someone building a duplex on 6 lots or what have you not. So we, in order to get the infrastructure now, and whether it's built now or take for example the such subdivisions we have or 20 years ago, then we have the infrastructure already in place. We have a district, right? So it's not like our water and sewer district is run by the town. If it was, then more funding opportunities would be allowed for infrastructure grants. But we don't. So really, this is our one opportunity to get infrastructure in there. Right, it hasn't been done before, and I don't think it will be done. Ever. It hasn't been done before, and right now we have a pretty a good deal here with these 4 blocks. So if I may, going back to the description, the designation of the lots, we have the 2 options, the one in black underneath number 2, again, that's page 23 and 37, or the red. If we may, please see if we can either do the one that's currently in black, if you have any other suggestions, or do we go with the one in red that says minimum requirement shall be, this is pretty loose, 2 dwelling units on a minimum of 2 lots and a maximum of 4 dwelling units on 4 lots, or should we go with what's described above that?
Let me ask you a question about that. Now, you're describing what can go on those as either duplexes or fourplexes or a single family dwelling with a ADU. Okay? Why wouldn't we zone the town lots the same way?
Yeah, so
they could have single family, but we wouldn't do it as a town because we want workforce housing. So we could do duplexes and fourplexes on our lots.
So I think we just answered that.
No big apartment.
Yes, sir. Well, respectfully, we did just answer that a few minutes ago, and the planning commission did come to a.
Excuse me?
We voted on that a few.
No, I think we voted.
Well, okay, Paul, if I may. The thing is, even at a duplex, the price of a duplex is probably gonna outprice workforce capabilities. I mean, if a townhome today is going for close to $300,000, a fourplex probably isn't going to be much cheaper, if cheaper at all. So we need apartments, not just townhomes. I mean, and I don't think they're going to rent. If somebody owns one of these fourplexes, could they rent one of the units at a rate that's low enough for a workforce bulk? That's doubtful.
I rent units for what would, on this AMI put out by Jaffa, I'm renting at 30 to 40% all of my units, and I am not subsidized.
But you built years and years ago. If you build today, how much would it cost you? Could you afford to rent it out at that amount? Probably not.
So should we take another vote on that, or?
Well, I mean, if the planning commission's consensus was that they don't like Paul's idea, then no, we go forward with this. But I will just say that the verbiage in here, what I'm confused about between the red or the black, is that this part that says 2 dwelling units on a minimum of 2 lots makes me think that I guess I would need a little more clarification on what 2 dwelling units mean. Like, are we talking slap up 2 tiny homes right next to each other? Because
No, so the minimum requirement, it refers back to our current code. And maybe I could put some parentheses in there that points back into there. But it says the minimum lot shall be a dwelling, 2 family, 2 options. That is currently calling from our residential single family district in the town. So it is basically just saying, it's basically calling out what we currently have in the code book. That's found in 10.2.3, I think A, 10.2.3A. Under residential single family district, it goes single family home and dwelling 2 family. That is what that is quoting.
That's the minimum square footage.
Correct, and then it goes into there about what minimum square footage is.
I think minimum square foot for a house is 550 square feet.
600.
Just to add, just because it could be relevant or not, at least a dozen or 15 times in talking to people on these signatures, it was an example given these affordable, or supposed to be affordable duplexes over here, the like gray colored ones. People said literally the comment as to the effect of, are they actually gonna be affordable because we can't afford those? I don't know what the rates are. I don't know if they pointed them out as we thought we had help there, but that doesn't, we can't afford those, so. I just wanted to throw that as far as a duplex or.
Well, I think something that's happening, is that we as a commission are trying to anticipate building costs and things like this, when really we're just tasked with, rezoning or possibly rezoning the land to multifamily from how it is right now, which is single family. And, I just don't want. I know that some people are of the opinion when we talk about 1.5 million, that's sort of the estimated cost to get sewer out there. And we think that's a big number. You talk to developers and that's nothing. And so my concern is a developer coming in and seeing our blank slate with not a lot of stipulations to it and just going and turning into exactly what people are talking about, not wanting to see there.
We could put those stipulations in the zoning aspect of it. All we're looking to do here is to figure out the zoning capacity. You're jumping the gun.
Well, we're all jumping the gun on this, so.
So going back to exhibit B, page 2337, if we possibly say, do we want under designation of lots number 2, do we want what is in black or do we want what is in red? And of those two, do you think it needs changes?
I prefer what's in black at this point in time.
Ms. Chair.
I agree, I prefer what's in black.
Mr. Mickey.
That one.
Yes, I would agree.
And black.
If we do it, yeah.
Mr. Fulton. Yeah. Chris.
I can go with it.
Thank you. Going down. Now there is so 1022 was the zone district use schedule. A lot of questions. Now that's going to be on page 19 and 37. 19 and 37 is the zone district use schedule and it is labeled exhibit A.
What page again?
Page 19 of 37. Again, those online, you can find this packet in the Town of Westwood website. If we look, we can kind of see, and I apologize, I probably should have made this a little bit better, but the multifamily district, there was questions of short-term rentals 1 and 2. And people were saying, well, if you make this all a multifamily district, what's going to stop someone from coming in here and making these all short-term, rentals? Right, so you can live in one unit and own the building and rent out the other. So I put this as short-term rental 1 and 2 as restricted for the multifamily district. So specifically just long-term rentals. Now we can work on that. To remind you, short-term rental 1 is if you live in one, you can rent out the other. Short-term rent out the other. Short-term rental 2 is if you don't live there, you can short-term rent it out. So we can either have short-term rental 1 restricted and short-term rental 2 restricted, or allow short-term rental 1 and restrict short-term rental 2 in the multifamily district in order to preserve these houses for affordable, for the town in the city of Westwood.
I would prefer to restrict it entirely.
You what?
I would restrict it entirely from short-term rentals. I don't think that's what our intent is for this space, so.
I agree with that, but the only thing you mentioned something about an owner living. I think an owner should have the option to, like, if there's a duplex, an owner should be able to live on one side, rent the other side out, but that other side has to be longer.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if we restrict it, that would still be allowed.
Okay.
So going around.
Yeah, the question I have, and I've had a number of people ask me about affordable housing that are retired. And they would like to, that would really help them out. They're not working. They're on a fixed income and they want to retire. How are we gonna, defeats our objective of workforce housing?
It does, but I don't think we can ageist in that direction. don't think you would ever get away with it.
Yeah, I don't think you
Well,
can.
didn't we just say you have to be working? Did we just say it's workforce housing?
Well, that would be the ideal, but again, I don't know that you can restrict it legally in that direction. I'm not, certainly not a legal expert, but I would question that viability. Yes, this would be very tempting to a retiree.
Yes.
You can't. Yeah, I don't think.
Clay's on there.
Yes,
Oh,
Laura.
Clay, well,
I just had two short statements. One, that I have not heard on the table that West Cliff is totally responsible for the whole workforce having a living space. Everybody working in West Cliff does not live in West Cliff. And the other day, I won't mention names. A gentleman gave very, very good alternative options for workforce housing that Silver Cliff is working on, we're working on. The ambulance, was it the ambulance or the fire, one of the other places are working on. So I think the way Paul is talking about the duplexes and stuff would be a nicer scenario for the town of West Cliff, because we don't have to be planning on a possible 52 apartment units. And my second statement is that it seems like it really has not been set in place, the things that you, the planning commissioners, and people want, that if you're pushing it forward too fast, trying to get your decisions like this and that, you're gonna be confused at the end of the day and possibly make the wrong decisions. So if you're having choices between 2 or 3 different plans, it shouldn't be said that we have to do this right now because I wanna get this granting going and everything go. You're gonna have mistakes and you're gonna have problems.
Yep.
And so I really appreciate you guys trying to kind of slow things down and making the best decisions, because what I was reading on one of the town papers, I don't know the right word, was that the duty of the trustees of the town of West Cliff, and it would be for the town manager and the town other people, is to respect the way the town is planned and built out and keeps the features of the small town that a lot of people want to come here to enjoy without having other problems. And I really applaud you two guys for at least fighting to see and slow things down and maybe it will end up just like, but at least you thought it out and you didn't crash because you went too fast. That's all.
Thanks a lot. And I also just want to reiterate that this board's job is to take the recommendation to the town board. This is not a decision-making commission. We make a recommendation to the board, and then we can make a recommendation and they can say, no, go back to the drawing board. I mean, we don't know that. So, but I will say that this board has spent a lot of time and we spent a lot of time working on this. And so we are trying to be very conscientious and take into account everyone's thoughts and feelings on it.
Ma'am, so back to the short-term rental. Do we want to take a vote to allow short-term rental 1 or 2 or?
Well, we can take I kind of think we've heard the consensus, but, well, and so we've got a couple of
I'm
comments.
gonna ask Kathy a question about short-term rentals. We have an ordinance covering short-term rentals. And I think it's 3.5% of our existing housing stock can be a short-term rental.
Correct.
And this one, excuse me?
Non-owner. That's where it's investor.
Yeah, there's different
Yeah.
restrictions.
Right, but yeah, non-owner, yeah. So this may be in violation of that ordinance.
Like Caleb said, you can restrict it in the table you have, you can restrict it just like we have in other spots where it's prohibited, they can't do it.
So we're not making
we're setting up a special zoning for this. It's gonna be named something different than traditional neighborhood or, you know, it's got its unique zoning, so we can set it up any way we want.
Well, Caleb, to answer your question, like my vote is no short-term rentals. I agree with Chris, that totally defeats the purpose of what we're talking about doing out there.
So
Mayor,
I
Chairman,
agree
let me
there.
comment, please.
Mr. Mayor.
For the record, please quit saying vote. Please say consensus, because you're not making a vote. You're
Did I say no?
You did.
My
And
apologies.
for our records, our written records, we have to transcribe what you guys are all saying. So please,
My apologies, consensus.
My opinion,
thank you.
My opinion is no short-term rentals.
Mr. Cole. Chris said his piece. Thank you.
and then we do have one comment here.
I'd just like to say that if you get a grant from the government, they may take all your zoning and go, no, you want the money, we're gonna build 100 units there. And we'll build the way we want it. That's the problem with grants, and they'll tell you how many people of what race or color or whatever can live there.
Exactly.
That is just not
So,
true.
well,
That is absolutely true.
Board, this is not time for public.
I think this manager in apartment complex, that is absolutely the truth.
We're not gonna get into that, but I think that I know that this board is trying to be very conscientious about the concerns about the grants and what they can and cannot be used for. And there, we need to do maybe more research before we would apply for a grant about that, but that doesn't change that we can still change the zoning on these lots. Now, whether the town would want to try to get a grant or not is sort of a non-issue, actually, because we really are just talking about the changing the zoning here. That's our task. So I appreciate the comments. So
Can I ask you a question, Caleb? So everything you're going through, the ordinance, is that new business A that you're going over now?
No, this is old business. Bravo should be.
Right, so that is just the zoning question. That has nothing to do with how you're going to rezone it. That would be in an ordinance coming afterwards, correct?
Yeah, so when it's presented to the board, it'll.
Okay, thank
you. So we've handled 10.2.3, we've handled 10.2.1, 10.2.3, 10.2.1, excuse me, 10.2.3 and 10.2.2.
well, isn't 10.2.3 building review? Have we gotten there yet?
Yes, that was what we're reading off of exhibit B, page 23 of 37.
We don't, is that architectural review?
No, well, it does include building review under number 3.
What's that mean, building review?
It states here, all building plans and architectural designs must be submitted to the planning commission for review and consideration in order to allow a higher density and proper planning and aesthetically pleasing building practices.
We don't have an architectural review committee in the town right now.
But there's,
Excuse me, we'd have to establish one. And we've talked about it before, and the board has always voted it down. They don't want that. I think, Chris, you are opposed to that, are you not, an architectural review committee for the town? Chris?
Sorry, I was on mute. I don't know that we have to have a full committee dedicated to architectural to set up a special zoned area. Why would we?
I mean, it seemed like I read, and I didn't copy that page off, but I thought I read that we're trying to stick with in what we're even looking to do out here, we're still trying to stick with the feeling of the town of Westcliff and
Yeah, and that's fine. What Paul was saying is that we would have to set up the architectural committee. And yes, I am opposed to a committee to dictate for the town as a whole an architectural edict. But for a specially zoned area, if we want to set that up, and we're setting this up from scratch, I'm not opposed to that.
All right, Chris's opinion is he's not opposed to that. John?
I think a lot of the comments that are concerned, that we're getting from the community, concerned comments have been about what are these things gonna look like and what control can we have over that? So I'm leaning towards, yes, having some control over what gets built and what it looks like. I think we've made some missteps in the past. And I don't want to name the neighborhood or the buildings, but there have been some homes built that are nowhere near in the character of West Cliff. And I'd like to keep some control over that. I think
So
one of the
you're
reasons.
saying there are already buildings in town that you know,
That I don't like.
you're not, you know. No, I understand.
But
No, I understand, but my point is.
It's not about just not liking.
We don't wanna set up two separate sections of ordinances covering these properties versus the rest of the town. It's hard to administer anyway. And we don't want people saying, yeah, but they didn't and we have to. And so those are the kinds of things that we always have to address as a town board. And I just talked to Caleb today about signage on some properties. And they exceed our sign ordinance. And we have to address that because other people are gonna say, hey, I want this 4x8 foot sign sticking out from my building on Main Street. There's nothing governing me right now, as long as it's 4x8 or less. So the point of it is that you can't have two different sets of ordinances governing how you run the community, in my view, as mayor, and just as mayor.
Wow.
I know how you feel about architecture control.
Yeah, well, anybody travels around much and you can see, and I just saw some this morning on my way back from Wyoming, is it's all new construction. But there's ways you can make it to look like it's new construction, of course, but it complements the community.
Yes.
Okay, and there's others you say, why the hell did they let them do that? Okay, and so I'm all for it. And can we do that in this area to start with? I don't know. That's a legal question above my pay grade. So, but anyway, I'm for, making something that complements what we have and entices some other folks maybe looking to do their own thing in a better way or more pleasing way.
Well, I'll be a lone opinion out here, which is fine. I am not for architectural control because while I feel that this committee or even this current town board would be pretty flexible and open to people's design ideas, I don't know about the next one. The next one could be like, it has to be this color and this style and this type of material. And I don't like that. That scares me because that's not what this town, all you gotta do is drive down any of the streets and it's just a hodgepodge. It's a bunch of different things. And that's kind of what makes us unique. And I also don't want to get confused that we're an HOA. So my question would be, how can we look at the UBC codes or the codes that are in place right now that govern you and what you have to do for inspections, and how does that work to where we can maybe put a little bit of parameters on things, but not like there's going to be a committee in place in 2 more years, this committee changes and all of a sudden the next people are like, well, I'm from Vail, and in Vail, everything has to be this color with this kind of trim. And how do we not become that? That's all I care about.
Yeah.
And I am absolutely opposed to that as well.
But both are great questions. If I don't want to skip too much, but if we go to D, and if you do look in 118, that is just a new provision that we can look at. And well, continuing on, I do have some provisions for an architectural control committee. It's gonna need some work, though, if we want to say yes to an architectural control committee, and then work on the exact ordinance that governs what we can look at and what we cannot look at, then we rest assured, we can still, vote yes or no on this, and then, we still have about a year and a half to, or not, to work on the ACC. So
Caleb, if I may, do you mind? In the past, instead of going for a control committee, I am much more in favor of I'm missing the word at the moment. What's that? Incentives. And if we have an architectural committee, why don't we just allow incentives instead of, hey, you can or can't do this? Maybe charge a little less for a permit or something to make it worth fitting within an agreed aesthetic. But once you get into dictating one person's aesthetic over another's, I think that's dangerous territory. If you want to incentivize, that's great. Everybody likes to save a buck. But if somebody says, hey man, I believe in my freedoms, why can't I build the building I want on the property I own?
Yeah, so I only put that provision in there because there was worries about, oh my gosh, how would this look like, on and on and on. But we can go ahead if we'd like to, and we could do this first. We could say, yay or nay to an architectural control committee, and then once we do that, once we get to Delta, we can go through the weeds of what that would look like, what parameters we have. And again, right, we can rezone and then come up with what the specifics of an architectural control committee will look like. So would that be something, Ms. Chair, that you think would be the right course of action?
Well, I'm just trying to find, where's the D that you're talking about? I have exhibit B.
Yeah.
And then I did make copies of everything, and then I go to minimum requirements.
That's new business A.
Oh, okay, so you've really jumped.
New business A. And if you're on your packets, the specifics for that are on page 34, 37. So if you'd like, we can go through, say your names and architectural control committee, and then later on discuss exactly what the architectural control committee can do for the multifamily district.
Well, I guess I'm getting a little, because we're kind of like jumping around. If item B of old business is consideration of recommending to the Board of Trustees the possible rezoning of the blocks and discussion, that's what I thought we were discussing, but now have we jumped over to item C, which is consideration of recommending to the Board of Trustees an ADU ordinance? Like, shouldn't we do one and then the other?
That would be good for the record.
And have public comment after one, before two?
Yes, I would agree to that. So we still haven't, we're not done talking about yes or no to the rezoning. So right now, we're on exhibit B, which would go into 10.2.3 of the municipal code. And we're under building review. So before we give our suggestion to the board, we need to figure out exactly what we are suggesting to the board. So under number 3, building review, John, yea or nay, should we put an architectural control committee?
I don't think we're ready to say yay or nay. I'd like to make a comment about my experience here. When I first moved to West Cliff, we rented the Hines district and lived there for 5 months and walked all over the town. And thought we were going to build out in the unincorporated area of Custer County, and decided after living in town that we liked that. So we bought a place in Adams subdivision. Actually, it's in the subdivision, but not in the subdivision because it was built before the subdivision. And I like to be able to walk everywhere, but I think one of the most charming things about living in what I call Old West Cliff is it's a front porch neighborhood. And most of the homes have a front porch. And the home we rented had a front porch. And you walked around the neighborhood and you just entered into conversations with people because they were sitting on their front porch. It was part of what a lot of people call the friendliness of West Cliff. Same thing when we were sitting on our front porch of our rental property. People would walk down the street and they just walk up and engage in a conversation. I thought that was great. And I think when people talk about, I really like, the character of the neighborhood not change, remain the same. When I look at what would I ask for if I were on an architectural committee, I'd like to have front porches on what gets built out there. And to maintain that character, to drive that natural friendliness and engagement between neighbors that you get when you have a front porch neighborhood. Once again, I'm saying a lot more than I thought of it. But if I'm thinking about, architectural controls for what gets built, whether it's duplexes or fourplexes, yeah, that's one of the things I'd like to see. It's kind of old fashioned, but I think it's an architectural feature that knits the community together. So
you're in support of architectural controls?
I am in support of some version of it. And I think, and I'm hearing from the community that they don't want the character of the town to be transformed with a bunch of modern buildings. So I'm saying yes, and I'm also agreeing with you and Chris that it can be a slippery slope if it's not done right. So I would agree that we need something. I doubt very much we're going to get the proper wording done here tonight, but I'd like to see something put in place to keep the character of Old West Cliff in place.
Well, I don't go for two separate architectural, one in town, one in this area, or one in this area and one in town. So unless we do it all over town, then I would say no.
Well, I think you kind of said you're something.
Is this required for this?
No,
For the grant?
no, absolutely not. This was put in to calm fears of, what it is gonna look like, right? To let people know, hey, look, we're gonna look at these before they even get built, whoever's building them. So that's why that is there in that ordinance.
So, sorry to you, but architectural control is kind of up in the air.
So I got a yes for John, a no for Paul, a yes from Bob, a no for you, Christy. And then Chris, was yours a yes or a no?
I'm gonna have to say a no at this time.
No, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so then that's totally fine. It's a no, so there will be no building review.
Like if we can, like I said, if we can come up with an incentive committee or whatever, I could say yes to that. But and Paul is right. It probably shouldn't be split between one area versus another. Though, if we could, I would say yes. But I think Paul has kind of made a good point.
So.
Thank you, Chris.
So now we need to move on to area height and standards, which is number 4. And I don't know if everybody on the committee has read through everything. I can tell you all right now, I am opposed to 0-foot setbacks on the side yards.
I agree with that. Also, that would be, if you had zero setback, then you're gonna have buildings butted up right next to each other.
Yeah.
How would firemen get around it and so on and so
Well,
forth?
it does say that it would be fireproof, if it's fireproof rated. It does say that here, so that seems to be addressed, like in the IBC or UDC, it would have to be addressed in there. Even so, still against it.
And do note though, that we have 0 setback on the sides on our core commercial right now.
Yes,
So maybe,
this is residential.
throwing a number in the air, how does, 10 feet sound?
Let me just put this out there. I think, you know, based on the conversations we've had with developers, let's just limit 2 buildings, you know, in the town-owned area and be done with it. We've got a footprint, maximum footprint of 7,500 feet, well, that'd be really tall. 7,500 feet. And we're just going with the current town height limit of 35.
Simple enough. Madam Chair, should we take a vote on that?
Not a vote.
Oh, gosh. Consensus, I apologize for the
You're
consensus.
gonna give Kathy a heart attack, she's
I
she's
will.
retiring after 2 weeks.
I'm gonna take him and meet him
We vote for that.
She does that on a regular basis.
So, yeah, I just wanna make sure I understand, Chris, you're suggesting that we keep the town lots that we're talking about right now set up to be the minimum or the same requirements that's already in place in our existing zone.
Well, for setbacks.
For size also.
For who?
Well, I think the 2 buildings that we're talking about are well within those setbacks, are they not, Caleb?
Based off the, design or the bird's view from it, yes. But basically what John is saying is that, save that discussion for later, because we don't even know what these buildings would look like. Just give them the height parameters and square footage parameters and go from there.
Right, but the square footage parameters would not force anything beyond the existing setbacks.
No, I have no reason to believe that it would.
Right, so there's, unless the developer would just want to be a jerk and just build it to this one side, there's nothing to be concerned about here.
We wouldn't be able to do that because we have things in place.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So, I mean, I can.
Are we gonna require sidewalks in this area? For the dwellings?
I would think that would be a question when a developer would come forward with the suggestion that would need to be put on in that time.
I agree.
Cause like otherwise we're kind of, I feel, getting into the weeds and we really need to be talking about, are we going to rezone these lots to multifamily? And right now, we're only talking about the lots owned by the town of Westcliff, which are blocks 33 and 30. That one, we're block 34.
The question mark lot.
Yeah, because I don't know what it is. I couldn't find it. So am I right with that? Is that correct?
Yes, I would also suggest not put that provision in there. Again, it's just rezoning. I don't think we should have that in there and just let that discussion come later.
We're gonna vacate up the streets anyway.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
maximize the use of the property.
So what John is proposing is that this number 4 on here matches the existing code in the town.
So as far as setbacks, match what we currently have for setbacks or just not?
Yes.
Okay, so 5 feet to the side. 10 to the rear and front.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm also saying that we're limiting it to 2 buildings.
What?
2 buildings. 2
Specifically say 2
with a
buildings.
footprint of 75 7,500, I'm gonna get messed up here again. And we might also add, that a daycare, facility or, could be part of the project.
Well, I just want to clarify to the people sitting here, when we're throwing out numbers like 7,500 and 12,500 feet. There are, if you own that amount of space, you own a 2-acre parcel in the middle of the residential district right now. If you have that square footage, by the existing code, you would be allowed to build this structure that John is talking about. So what John is saying is that this code that's already in place that we're talking about out here in this multifamily district is the same that is already in place in the town of West Cliff. So
Thank you, ma'am. Back to the area standards. So John suggested 2 buildings of 7,500 square feet, which was what we talked about, so I apologize for not putting that in there. And then we also wanted to add possible daycare.
Yes.
Okay, so we can do that. I do have intent to plan unit development use by right. So basically letting that do a PUD. So what we could do, I don't think that's a bad idea. I just don't want it to limit it to only daycares.
Right.
So I think in order to allow for more, rather than say structure, maybe put apartment units. Apartment units shall be limited to 2 buildings of 7,500 square foot. Sorry, I gotta write that down.
Well, daycare would be commercial, wouldn't it?
yeah.
So you'd have to zone it mixed use.
See, and again, I think that we're getting into, I just think that I would hope that whatever board is in place, when maybe a developer would come and approach us with a design idea, if that happened to include a daycare, because we're gonna provide, daycare for the people that are working, that the board would be like, no, we can't do that. I would hope that there'd be some vision.
So you're saying, no need to put it in right now.
I don't think we need to put it in right now. I think we need to talk about rezoning.
That's a good point. I agree.
Yeah, and don't forget too, there is that extra slice of a lot that we're not even talking about at this point that the town does own. Because the 2 buildings we're talking about, the 7,500 each, would be on one section. We have a whole nother section that we could zone for mixed use in the future.
That's closer to the highway.
That's the little triangle.
Yeah, that's closer to the highway. So I just,
Okay.
I'm okay with it being what it already is in town, because I can't, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so the consensus is
Good job.
apartment, thank you. Apartment limited to 2 buildings of 7,500 square feet, and then changing the setbacks to what we currently have in the town. John?
Yeah.
Did you mention the height limit?
Yeah.
Yes.
Basically, the standard height limit already in the town.
Which is 35.
35 feet.
I oppose that.
Well, I support it only because it's already in place in the town. Anyone could do that if they have property in town, like you go down, I believe it's Powell, and there's some larger properties there, and someone could do that right now on those properties, and you wouldn't be able to say much about it. So I say okay for that.
So 2 yeses, Mr. Winkie, you are
No.
with no at 35 feet.
Yes.
Bob, yes, Chris?
Yes.
So looking at the what is proposed, that is basically it for Old Business Bravo. As stated before, in order to apply for the grant, we will need to make a decision today. So I do believe that the planning commission is ready to make a to make sure I'm saying the right word,
So which
to recommend.
agenda items all these recommendations are?
This is me, so I'm gonna wait for the chair to suggest whether or not to.
Item B is consideration of recommending to the Board of Trustees the possible rezoning of blocks, and so what Caleb is asking for is if someone would make a motion to take to the board that we want to rezone. Possibly, we're recommending to the town board that we could rezone these lots owned by the town of West Cliff to multifamily with the parameters that we have been discussing, which I would spell out when we get to that. But Caleb, the one thing that's concerning me and making me hesitant to make the recommendation is you keep talking about the grant, and I'm concerned about what the grant commits us to. I am not at all opposed to rezoning this property as we've been talking, and if a developer comes in and wants to whatever, negotiate with town, buy it from the town, and by right, they would be able to put this maximum size property, anyone could do that right now. I'm in support of that, or maybe they want to cut it up and make it into duplexes or whatever. I'm in support of that. I do have a lot of concerns, also in the vein of what some people have said, that there are some strings with not just that grant, any grants that could tie us in a way that would not allow us the opportunity to provide the housing to the folks that we really need to provide, that we're wanting to provide the housing for. And I'm not saying that when you say that's absolutely wrong, that may be true. But I just feel that there needs to be more research done. So if you're asking me to make a recommendation based on, because we're going to go for a grant, I can't support that. If you're asking me to make a recommendation because we should rezone this property because we don't really have anywhere else to go and this would be a great place for some multifamily, I am in support of that.
Okay. So based off the basis of that then.
Yeah, I mean, so, but I mean, if you start, I'm just saying that I would encourage you before this would go to the town board, that all the research has been done about the strings that are going to come with any grants, any money like that. Because I will guarantee that all these people will show up at the town board meeting to argue about it. So it'd be better just to have all of that
I
information.
think, Christie, that the grant is a separate issue.
Right, I agree, but Caleb keeps saying, well, we have grant, and that's scaring me. When we are just talking about the grant.
But we're not voting or making any recommendation
About any
relative
grant.
to a grant.
So we
As long
don't
as
have to take
everybody
this
knows
up at
that.
the next board meeting.
No, we don't have to pick it,
We don't have to
you
pick it
have to pick it up.
Well, we don't, the town board doesn't have to get up at the next board meeting, right?
The town board needs to, I mean, it's
I'm
gonna.
just saying, if you take it. we
They
don't
are
have to take it.
separate issues, but they're not unrelated.
But this is a roadblock. Should that be a choice we do want to make? Should it? be?
So it
Okay.
is,
No, it's just that if we don't do this, we definitely can't do that. If we do this, we still don't have to do that.
You still have options once
Right.
we've done this.
Yes.
So
If we don't do this, we have no options.
If someone would like to make a motion to recommend to the town board, you want me to say it all out right now or wait till someone makes a motion?
Well, whoever makes the motion needs to put it in writing before they state it and then state it.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Really, it would just be I would like to make a motion to.
you can't make a motion.
You can't.
I'm giving
Just
an example.
let them do it. They do it.
I understand how this works. I'm giving an example. So it would be, I'd like to make a recommendation for the Board of Trustees to rezone.
We want one person making the motion. and-
Am I allowed to make a motion?
Yes, you are.
Okay, I'm gonna make the motion. I would like to make a motion or a recommendation to the Board of Trustees that we rezone the town-owned lots, south of Herman Park. I know there are blocks 33, and then and something in block 34, to multifamily housing that is in, I don't know how to say this, it's the same zone, it's the same guidelines that's already in place in the town.
Consistent with.
You can't help make the motion. Please.
That's already,
Did you mean to exclude the private lots?
Yeah.
well, no, I just said the town of Westcliff lots.
The town-owned lots.
The town
You
owned
got that.
lots.
So you're
So,
saying just the town owned lots with your motion?
yes, that's what all we're talking about right now is the town owned lots.
I would disagree.
Okay.
I think we've been
So
talking
she needs to
about,
get a second before you disagree.
So, yeah, so I made a motion and someone can second it or no one can second it and then it fails. And someone seconds it, then we vote on it and it can still fail.
Well, John, I don't think we are talking, I think this is separate because we're talking about those two buildings with 7,500 square foot footprint. We don't want those footprints on the rest of those lots, do we? That's,
well, I guess I can speak here. No, we're not talking about that. We've been talking about, based on the proposed ordinance that Caleb has given us, two different areas of this ordinance.
Has this been seconded?
No,
it hasn't.
It needs to be seconded before you have discussion.
Okay.
So would anyone like to second it? And if not, it
I'll
dies.
second
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Now we can have discussion.
okay, sorry. I just want to clarify though, that since this is got a separate set of stipulations, that this should be voted for separately than the rest. I mean, I do think we do want to vote on the rest, but having this separated is, or Caleb, were you thinking we should do it as one motion?
Yeah, so this is a multi-family district, so one ordinance including.
Caleb, excuse me, you're not a member of the committee.
Yeah, but John, but.
But he's an advisor.
I am just there, I'm the lead advisor. Thank you.
So Chris asked Caleb a question. So Caleb, please.
So this, I probably am confused by the motion. I think your motion is to get rid of all the other blocks, just include the town blocks, Miss Patterson.
Right.
Okay, so so that's the motion on the floor. So now, since it's up to discussion, we can, see what our yays and nays are. And if it is a yay, then it goes through. If it's a nay, then we're back to the multifamily district, which would include the town-owned lots plus blocks 19, 20, 33, and 34.
So they need to call a vote on this.
Yes, so
Or more discussion, we can have more discussion. My motion was just for the town lots, because even that is just a lot, and I mean, whatever, that's a motion I made, and you can stop.
Kathy, if I may ask you a question, could we make a motion for the other lots today or not?
After this motion is called and voted on, yes, you could make a second motion, somebody could to that.
That's
So
what I was asking. Thank you.
So discussion is done, Ms. Patterson, you'll say all those in favor?
Yeah, I know how to do it. So the motion has been that this committee makes recommendation to the Board of Trustees to rezone the town-owned lots to multifamily, not to exceed the existing requirements that are in place in the town. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Chris, did you vote? We didn't hear you.
Aye.
Three.
No, did you vote for it or against it?
Let me do a roll call.
I voted in for it. I voted for what you proposed.
Okay, so Kathy will do a roll call.
Mayor Patterson, or sorry, back to the old days, Chairman Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Mickey,
Aye.
Mr. Bolton. You see that louder, please?
Aye.
Mr. Van Dorn,
Nick.
Mr. Lund,
Aye.
it's 4-1, passes.
Now, if someone I don't know if we need further discussion or if we kind of discussed it in the workshop and someone would like to roll that into a motion. If someone would like to make a motion regarding the additional lots out there, or if we need to have more discussion about that, we can do that now.
I would like to make a motion that we turn those additional lots, and Caleb, could you give me those numbers?
19, 20, 33, 34.
Okay, 19, 20, 33, and 34 to multifamily, where with 2 lots, you could have a single family home with an ADU or a duplex. With 4 lots, you could have a 4-plex. That's what we were looking for those.
That's your motion?
That's the motion.
That's my motion.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded that for the existing lots or blocks 19, 20, 33, and 34, with 2 lots, you can have either a duplex or a single family home with an ADU, or with 4 lots, you can have a maximum of a 4-plex. Did I get that right, Chris?
That's what I'm proposing. Yes, ma'am.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussions?
That's what we talked about the other day in the workshop, it's up to.
Right, right. Right.
Just,
John Van Doren, second.
Right.
I seconded, and I have a comment or two,
Okay.
probably more than I thought I was gonna make.
As usual.
As we, I think something that hasn't been shared with the community is we sent certified letters to all of the property owners in the area. And not everybody responded, but of those that did respond, they were mostly in the affirmative.
Right, we had 8 respond, 67.4% were for.
Okay, there you go. So I think that's important to point out, that we're not getting a lot of pushback from the actual property owners, many of them who don't even live in the state of Colorado. So it obviously is not a surprise to me, because these properties don't have much value because they can't be developed. So this is a good thing for many of the property owners in the area.
Mr. Chair, do you want to do a roll call on this?
Yeah, we'll do a roll call. Do you have any more comments first?
I don't.
Okay. Kathy, or sorry, Melanie, roll call. I'm in support.
Mr. Winnie? Mr. Colton? Mr. Van Dorn?
Yes.
And Mr. Lund?
Yes, aye.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so we have two recommendations going to the Board of Trustees. What meeting will it go to them at? Is that on the 17th? When is the meeting?
If we have public notices like everything else, it'll be October.
Okay, so these recommendations are, one, to rezone, we're recommending to rezone the town-owned lots to multifamily, not to exceed any existing regulations. And the second recommendation is for the rest, for lots or blocks 19 and 20 and 33 and 34 to be able to have on 2 lots, either a single family home with an ADU or a duplex, and on 4 lots, it could be a maximum of a 4-plex. Those are our 2 recommendations going to the town board. Okay, whenever it goes.
If I may clarify, what was the first recommendation again?
The first recommendation was that the town-owned lots would be changed to multi-family.
So just blank multifamily, how we currently have it.
Will
To fit the description.
fit the same description of the existing code,
Multifamily.
the existing multifamily code which you talked about.
Yeah, that was a motion that was made and approved.
Okay,
So there's two recommendations going to the board.
And the multifamily zone, it's not any, we're asking, or the motion was that what is already existing for multifamily in the existing town be the same for those properties owned by the town.
Okay, so no, because I'm gonna have to write this up and give to the board, so no 35 feet, no 7,500 square feet.
No, that was exactly.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
all right, just so
That's
we're
the
clear.
existing, it's exactly the same as what is in the town right now.
Here we go.
All right. So item C is consideration of recommending to the Board of Trustees the ADU ordinance. And this is, let's see, in my packet, and the one that I have includes all of the information that Bianca had. So I have to go down here to actually page 76 of 84 to get to this.
You have the right packet. I only have 37.
I only have 37 pages.
I
don't know what but I have it. So
What
here.
page should we go to, Ken?
If you are on the September 4th packet, it's gonna be page 29, 37.
Well, we aren't on that.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I don't have the same, I don't know why, I don't know what I did.
I don't have anything on mine.
So, but, and this is the Town of Westcliff ordinance number -2024, and it's just an ordinance of the Town of Westcliff adding Title 10, adding Chapter 1, Section 17, ADUs of the municipal code. Am I on the right page?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah, so we've already adopted that, haven't we?
not ADUs.
Now,
Yes, we did.
yeah, so this would be basically hand in hand with what else we just, with the other, motion we just made. So we called out ADUs in this, so now we're gonna go over what an ADU is. 10.117 scope. The section shall be applicable to accessory dwelling units in the residential single-family district or commercial district and multifamily district. I realized that I let out a whole bunch of different areas, so if you would like, under scope, we can put this section shall be applicable to accessory dwelling units in the town of Westcliff, if you would like.
Item D, it says, ADU less than 550. Is that serving on houses? So we need to change that.
Well, and so are you saying, Caleb, that the definition, rather than breaking down, it's just say within the town of Westcliff, instead of for this 10-1-17, instead of breaking out all of the different zones, that it should just say in the town of Westcliff?
Yeah, for scope.
Okay,
Because this would apply anywhere in town.
right.
Yes.
So I think I'm sorry.
This, somebody was trying to speak, I was not looking.
No, I mean, I'm fine with it saying in the town of Westcliff.
Yeah, so it would be in the, like you said, in the town of Westcliff, but we have the 10.2.2 zone district use schedule, which gives specifics of where it's allowed, so I'm just not gonna put that in the ordinance, rather put that in 10.2.2.
Reference, right.
Yes. So 372 under definitions, as used in this chapter, the following terms shall have meanings indicated unless context otherwise requires. Accessory dwelling unit, a smaller dwelling on the same grounds as the primary home, attached to the main dwelling or detached from the main dwelling. The dwelling shall be no more than 550 square feet and no less than 300 square feet.
I'm gonna argue that one right now.
Please.
I'm okay with the no less than size and no less than 300 square feet, but I think that an ADU should be not able to be any larger than 2/3 the original home size, of the interior home size. And the reason I say that is because that would open the door maybe for a long-term rental for a family. A family, if you've got a 2,500 square foot home and 2,000, and then you can have an ADU that's 15 or 16 or 1750 square feet, then that opens the door for a rental property or something for a family to live in and contribute to the community. And so I'm fine with no smaller than 300, but if someone wants to put an ADU that's 2/3 of the size of their 4,000 square foot home, I'm all in support of it.
I think that's a fair point.
You've got down, but going down to D, an ADU less than 500 square feet, so comply with 361 municipal code. I thought we had the minimum dwelling size at 550 square feet.
So that calls out tiny homes. So right now, our current tiny home code is less than 500 square feet. Is considered a tiny home at the time. So but what that is saying is if you're going to go.
Do we want
less-
tiny homes?
it is in the ordinance currently, sir.
I know, I'm just questioning that.
Well,
Paul, I think that the difference is that minimum of 500 feet would be for the primary. This is for the additional unit.
so I mean, we've already established in the town of Westcliff that the minimum square footage on any primary home is 550 square feet. So now we're just talking about ADUs, and so the recommendation here, what's written is that the minimum size of an ADU is 300 square feet. And what was written is that the maximum could be 550 square feet. I'm proposing, no, it should be bigger, but that's just my opinion.
I agree with Kristen. What is 2/3 of 550?
2/3, well, see, that's gonna be the hit right there is that, we say a minimum of 300, so. let's see.
363.
Yeah, so we're
363, so we're good.
Yeah.
So we can still have a minimum of 3, 2/3 of the primary residence size. That works for me.
We should say 2/3 of the footprint. Because you could have a 2-story dwelling, as I do,
Yes.
and that's a lot bigger.
I think.
Well, I was saying, my thought is 2/3 of the heated area, because what if someone's got like humongous porch, but then they've just got this CBD house? I mean, it should be 2/3 of the heated area of the house.
Conditioned area.
Yeah,
enclosed area.
it says, if you go to the assessor's website and look at people's houses, it says, heated area versus
Yeah.
porches and stuff. So it'd be pretty easy for Caleb to use, if someone came in with an ADU plan, to go right to the assessors, and it shows like, well, your heated area is this much, so the biggest your ADU could be is this, whatever.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Can I ask a question? So in our single-family residential district, it says that the single-family residence minimum floor area is 550 square feet. Second detached single-family resident cannot be larger than the primary resident. Is that what he's trying to change?
No, it's the ADU, it can never
So
be
that's
larger
different.
than the primary residence. What was originally suggested was that an ADU could be no larger than 550 square feet and no smaller than 300 square feet. I propose no smaller than 300 square feet and no larger than 2/3 of the heated area of the primary residence, which according to map, even if someone had a 550 square foot home, the 2/3 of that would be 363 square feet, so we're still in compliance there. That's just my thoughts. And I also, just getting on, I don't think that any ADUs should be able to be used as anything other than long-term rentals. I don't know how you write that, and I don't know if anybody else agrees with that, and I don't know, what are we calling long-term? Are we calling long-term more than 60 days? Like, I don't know where the breakdown is.
It's so,
If somebody builds an ADU and their family is coming for a week, they can't stay in it.
No, you're right. I just don't think that, I just don't want it to be short-term rentals. There's a difference between my families coming and staying and.
I got you on that. I agree with
I think
that.
the short-term rental rules would apply to that, regardless. The size of it and all that. Yeah, because we're well restricted.
Well, I mean, if some of you, not everybody's gonna wanna build an ADU to rent it to somebody, they're gonna wanna build an ADU for guests, families, it's like a casino of some sort.
Sure.
So, they're not prohibited from using it for that.
No.
I don't prohibited from using it from that. I don't know
Okay.
actually
Does
how
it
you
have to be
enforce
attached
that.
to the, does it have to be?
But I think we also got to make a qualifier for that this would be great for seasonal work.
Yeah.
So you would want to put some kind of limitation on what you are considering short term, 3 months.
60 days, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then to answer your question, Paul, about does it have to be attached? It's my understanding from speaking with the water district that if it's attached, you don't need a separate water tap. If it's detached, then you do. So that, and plus you have all the existing setbacks you have to meet, and that could be a deciding factor in what you're able to build in an ADU. So that would be, I would guess, up to a homeowner. If they
Yeah.
want to go up 60 grand for another water and sewer tap, I don't know. I'm not kidding.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if they want to attach it, they can do that.
Right.
And avoid the tap fees. If they don't want to, that's their decision, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's, Caleb.
Yeah, so, so I guess we should see if we have a consensus of changing it from a minimum of 300 and then a maximum of 550, but change that to minimum of 3 and no larger than 2/3 of the heated area of the primary residence.
I'm in support of that.
Sounds good.
I'm in support of that.
All right, so let me just ask a question about that. I mentioned it before. So you have a 2-story house. And you got 4,000 square feet, 2,000 and 2,000. And so they could build something as an ADU, 2/3 of the size of the 4,000?
Yes, the 2/3 of the size of the heated area. If the assessor shows that heated, then.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Just was wondering.
But they could be,
To be honest, Paul, chances of that with the lot sizes on here, they're not gonna have the lot size to fit something that big, in addition to a 4,000 square foot house.
Yeah, just was curious. So,
But, yeah, so I don't know how much, I don't know what the size of the house would need to be and how many lots a person would need to have in order to have that. But I don't think we should prohibit, because the minute we say something different, turns out that one house out there somewhere that, right? That could have that. So I'd rather just leave it
plus,
like.
back to your point, Chris, some of the lots in Shallow Ridge are much larger than these lots. I'm just saying, so.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
then they're
true.
like,
But they could be.
PUD, and that's a whole other thing that we
No, but
probably don't
they
want to
could,
talk about. right
whatever
now.
they wanted to do, but that's, I'm just saying. I think maybe I'll, so, just to make.
So,
Should we, within this, tie anything like parking spaces as well or not? Is that wise or?
Yeah, well, currently we have parking ordinance, it's in our supplementary ordinance, so we are required, and that's in Title 10, supplementary, I think is in Chapter 4, 10-4, and it currently does require parking spaces.
So we're covered.
Yes, sir.
so as long as the recommendation to the board regarding ADUs is that it completely, this recommendation complies fully with parking, with the setbacks, with everything.
Right.
So it's not like we're making an exception by, there's nothing in this ordinance that makes an exception to existing rules.
Right.
And a lot of, just everybody's information, but observance in other places, a lot of new things are, they're adding their ADU right as they build out. Above garages and that kind of
Be a
stuff.
lot easier to do it that way.
Yeah, all of that.
Did you want to go through anything else on that, or does anybody else have any questions for Caleb about this proposed ordinance?
I think this is a great move.
And I just feel that this could address some of our housing, our workforce housing problem as well. Maybe even faster than other.
And on the board, if you guys see under supplementary regulations, it does say must provide parking and be on the alley. So we are double covered with that as well. Thank you. Yes, sir.
So does anyone want to make a motion? Do we have any more discussion about this, or does anyone want to make a motion to make a recommendation to the board?
I move we approve the ADU.
Make a recommendation.
I move that we make a recommendation to the board of directors, the town board, that we approve the ADU plan.
With the suggested changes?
The suggested changes.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded that we approve or we make a motion, or we make a recommendation to the town board regarding ADUs with the suggested changes. Any discussion? All those in favor, do you want to do a roll call, or all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so I mean, that's not, do I say recommendation carries? No. It's not a motion, right? Okay.
Motion carries.
All right, so now we're on to new business. Item A is consideration of recommending to the Board of Trustees the affordable housing ordinance. And now I'm rolling.
Yeah, well, I so I put that in because you were asking for affordable housing, or this, Mr. Wenke. Really, I can go briefly over, it starts on page 31, 37.
I don't have any of that, so
Would you like me to help you out real quick with that, or?
let's see if we get up to it.
Caleb, are you saying this might not be necessary now?
I am, it's, you wanna be careful with putting anything into an ordinance with the affordable housing. So I have here, under C, under 10.1.18, so ignore A, B, C at first, I apologize, I should have taken that out. Start at 10.1.18, go to C, it goes as, affordable housing shall be defined as no more than 100% AMI, based off the current housing needs assessment for the area. We can work on this, I think we need a workshop for this, because this is just, there's a lot. So it goes into what affordable housing is defined as, it goes into who the housing authority is, what that would look like, what residents that the housing authority would serve. It goes over possible incentives for developers, development review process for the town, and it really just calls out our current code.
I suggest that we table this.
Yeah, well, the reason I put this in and wanted this, because we've been talking about who paves the streets. And so we had one said, well, if we're just multi-family housing or if workforce housing, the developer may want that. Well, or free water taps, the developer may want that, et cetera, et cetera. And we could address those as individual issues, but then each one of those would have to come back to the board for discussion and approval. And so forth. So that's the reason I originally brought it up. It may not be necessary now. The board may choose to just address those when and if they develop. But there are other things that we are where we didn't change our setbacks, which is good, so we don't have to address that. That's something separate. There were other things, power, who brings that in? Is that the developer's problem, or is that, et cetera? People who are trying to develop affordable housing or workforce housing, I gotta get that term out of my head, workforce housing, they may need a lot of help to do it, and financial help. So, for example, if let's assume we get a grant that will plumb the area. Do they have to pay a tap fee for the grant to tap on, plus a You know, how they do that, who they pay it to, is that gonna be to the town, where does that money go, et cetera, so I think we need to address those things. Policy issue, a policy matter, and that's why this is more of a workforce housing ordinance than multifamily or low-income housing, so. That's what I wanted to do, and I don't know, Bob, Bob asked as another board member here. Are we gonna address those individually, or are we gonna make a policy? It's hard to make a policy on them now.
I don't think we need to at this point, so.
Yeah, so we could let it go and maybe we need to do that at some point in the future, so.
I kind of feel like, if a developer were to approach the town with a plan, then maybe at that point, the town and the developer say, hey, I want to do this, but I need a little bit of this to make that happen. And that, at that point, the town could negotiate and do some give and take in that way. But I think planning it out right now is really kind of putting the cart for the horse. I'd rather wait. I mean, wouldn't it just be terrible if we had 5 or 10 developers that were all interested in that land and we had to negotiate whoever had the best deal for us, so. Well, you can be optimistic, Bob. I'm just saying, I don't think we need to do that right now, but.
So what do we need to do? I think we should table it.
Motion to table.
I make a motion that we table this.
You don't need a motion, you can just table it.
It's always safer to say make a motion, because the worst thing that happens is Kathy or Melanie.
It's like everything I say is wrong.
You can do it either way.
Okay, item B is Christy Patterson requests the planning commission recommend to the board of trustees that heavy industrial zone properties have the same option as commercial zone properties or have a dwelling above, below, or behind the business. Let the record state that I'm going to step down now. And
Sure.
chat about that.
John can chair the meeting, I guess.
Wow.
I do.
Can we do the gavel?
You do it.
Yeah.
So discussion?
Well,
So-
we allow this.
Well, let me get here and can I say my
Oh.
first?
Okay.
I'm Christy Patterson, and my partner in the property is here, Greg Veltri back here. And we own 151 County Road 241, which some of you may know is right next to the fairgrounds and also in front of Shadow Ridge subdivision. We own 1.95 acres. We have a 40 by 60 shop there, and we are on well and septic. We actually were there before Shadow Ridge was there, and we gave easement to Round Mountain to put the water and sewer through so that Shadow Ridge could come into existence. And we did run a business there for 13 years, and now we have the property for sale and feel that it would be more marketable if there could be a dwelling there. And I know that there's been issues with, well, it's heavy industrial and what if someone were having, some major paint business or something there, and that would be unsafe for people who live there. And I'm not requesting that any of the existing codes are being violated. I mean, if there were going to be a residence, there would obviously have to be the 5/8 inch firewall and drywall and all those things. So I'm not saying like a person should have the right to live amongst their whatever their business is there, but I want to have the same right as every other commercial zone in the town to be able to have the option of a dwelling above, below, behind the structure. And I will say that I also own a heavy industrial lot that is currently in Shadow Ridge. It's lot 1 in Shadow Ridge. And by the Shadow Ridge PUD ordinance, or what's on that plat, that is allowed on that lot. And I also have looked at the other heavy industrial lots, which I think are out in Vivienda Parquet, even though that's still kind of a PUD or whatever there, but we've been talking about that. And this is still the largest heavy industrial lot in the town limits. So I think those others were like 1.1 acres. So anyway, all I'm asking for is the same right. What? Yeah, no. I'm just asking for the same right as all the other commercial properties in town.
Christie, did I hear you correctly that it would be allowed by the PUD anyway?
No, so, no, so 151 County Road 241 is not in the subdivision.
It's not in
It
the-
stands alone, it's in the town of West Cliff. I happen to own lot 1 in Shadow Ridge, which is also zoned heavy industrial, and by the plat of the PUD, it is allowed, residents above, behind, whatever, is allowed in Shadow Ridge. So I'm saying if it's allowed literally right next door in a subdivision, why couldn't it be allowed on this lot when we allow residents on every other kind of commercial lot in town now?
So, well, downtown, of course, many of the businesses live, have apartments or people live above them or in the back of them. So
But we're not allowed heavy industrial in those areas.
no, I'm just commenting on, we do this in other areas of the business district. If my wife kicks me out, I'll have to live in my office, so that's on highway commercial, so.
And it's allowed.
That's allowed, so anyway,
So what are your thoughts, Paul? You've been here for like
well,
140
I think
years.
Chris makes a good, I mean, he's bringing us heavy industrial and, you know, the question is, what are they gonna be doing in the area below or in front of these dwellings? And, if it is something that, maybe it's a welding shop and, et cetera, et cetera, well, those fumes are not nice to breathe all the time. I think you'd have to set some deed restrictions, Christie, that would limit it to businesses or whatever that are not engaged in activities that would result in life-threatening condition, whether it's CO2, whether it's welding, and on and on. So I share Chris's concern on that we have to be, you know, we have a life safety code here that we have to make sure we comply with. And so I'm not against it, but by the same token, maybe you could think and Greg could think about how you could put a deed restriction on the property that would not allow it. Now, having said that, it's how big?
1.95 acres.
They could certainly put an AD, or they could put a dwelling on there, an ADU on there too, which would be.
But see, it's not zoned for that right now, so I mean, if we could talk about that, that'd be great too.
You could build a residence next to a heavy industry if you wanted to and live there. Chris, what do you think about that?
I got a question for Caleb first. How would you inspect something like that, or would you have any means to manage that?
Yeah, so the heavy industrial is pretty. I guess I'm gonna have to answer that into two parts. One, it's just gonna be hard to, I think it opens the town up to liability. You know, if something is, you know, let's just say they're, gosh, I don't know, rubbing alcohol facility and there's fumes getting pumped out, it leaks into the HVAC, and then it gets to the dwelling above. You know, that just a random off the wall thing, you know, that I could describe. So it'd be hard, even if we, you know, make sure we dot our I's, cross all T's to, you know, to justify that without opening the town to liability. Now, what we could do is have it make a variance, you know, request a variance to where it's a detached unit on this land. That way, we don't run into any sorts of problems like that. So I don't know how the planning commission feel up to that. But just being above, behind, attached basically is what that is.
Well, so my, as the property owner, I'm just saying, like, if a person were to build above or behind that existing shop, and they've met all of the requirements needed to get a CO, I don't see how the town could be liable for that. They did everything that was required by, I mean, we're tight with IBC and UBC, so if those have all been met, and if there's a problem, I mean, if that's like saying, if the property burns down, the town could be liable, not really. So I don't see.
But I think putting a residential in the same structure that there's heavy industrial, is there IBC for that?
I would have to take a second and look at the code book before I answer that question.
Well, are you opposed to having a separate dwelling?
No.
See, I think separate dwelling makes sense.
A separate dwelling makes sense to me.
But
maybe the owner would like that because it's less costly to, to live above or behind, but,
out of curiosity, Christy, what is on this lot now that is heavy industrial?
The only thing that's on that lot right now is a 40 by 60 metal shop. I ran a trash business out of that for 13 years, and then I managed another trash business at that location for 5 years. And it's been vacant now for 2 years. So all Greg and I have is a big lot that's with a big vacant shop, and we would like to sell that, and it would be more appealing if we put.
I'm trying to just think of, would it not make more sense just to rezone it as a regular commercial instead of heavy commercial or heavy industrial, excuse me?
I don't want to limit what someone could do there. I mean, honestly, the way it's zoned, someone could put a gas station there if they wanted. I'm not saying we need a gas station, and I'm not saying anyone wanted to do that, but I don't want to take away that right from a potential buyer. Now, I'm okay with this idea of a separate structure, but if someone were to come to this board and say, hey, we are buying that place and we're gonna have, whatever, not gas and welding and all of this, and we would like to attach our home to that. I mean, I would feel that should be, it's always a person's right to come and request that, but I'm okay with the detached. I mean, that still gives us a lot more room to try to sell it.
So under that thinking, then when I want to sell my place, I should fight to have heavy industrial in my building as well.
Your building sits in the core commercial district. I think it's pretty clearly not zoned for heavy industrial. And I can tell you that was a fight that I had all the time with appraisals, was they were using comps that were literally on Main Street. And I'm like,
I understand, but you're saying you don't want to limit the future owner, but neither do I. So then, therefore, I should be able to make that same argument.
Do it. I guess then do it. I mean,
I think that,
So Christy, you're okay if the living unit is detached from the shop. And I think from a safety point of view, I'm comfortable with that as long as there's a sufficient setback between the shop and the dwelling.
So, but my partner is not okay with that.
I'm not okay with that because there's already structure inside the building built out of metal and 5/8 drywall. And I see no issue with that. But Paul, you talk about if Hope kicked you out, maybe you're not into that. You can go out there, you can live above a bunch of paint. What would happen if all of the paint's spilled and you had fumes?
no, I get you. But I think that it's hard to say what's going to go in there. Okay, very hard to say what's going to go in there. So you could have something in there that is inappropriate for children to breathe or whatever. You can say 5/8 drywall, but air goes where it wants to go, basically. It's not sealed off. And I'm just saying that or the guy could build a dwelling and then he could rent it. And all I'm saying is that I would be more comfortable as a board member if we allowed you to have a separate dwelling on the property if they want to build that at a safe distance from the shop. And, I don't know, I mean, that's just my 2 cents worth, so.
Who defines safe distance?
Well, the town would have to 50 feet or 25 feet or something, I don't know what that would be, we would have to address that at the time. I don't know that we can make this up here at the line of scrimmage, we have to kind of research what's reasonable. You know, if it's 10 feet, that's fine, that's 10 feet, you know. I'm not trying to limit what you can do on the farms, we have a lot. How much acreage is taken up by the shop and the?
40 by 60 feet, so that's 2,400
What
square
about
feet.
where the trucks were and all that, is that?
That's, I mean, so I don't know, whatever 1.95 acres minus 2,400 square feet is, that's exactly what's, I mean, it is a large piece of land. And you should come look at it when there's nothing in there. It's like, wow.
So, well, it's actually good, I don't know, but what if we just said, with the current code, an ADU could be allowed? But it's, you know, must be detached, so up to 2/3 of it, a detached ADU up to the 2/3 of the current building footprint. I mean, we really could, if it's a variance, we can restructure however we want. If, you know, we want to have it above or behind, we would, you know, do so, but if we want to detach, you know, say so as well.
The only problem with the ADU part of it is that what you propose and what we just are recommending to the board has, that has heavy industrial as, restricted. So while I appreciate that, we just said no to that.
Let me, so Chris suggested rezoning it to, let's say, highway commercial or something like that. And, that would limit what could go in there. I think it would broaden the market.
But we're also limited everywhere else, so why would we do one place that's unlimited?
Not quite understanding what you're saying, Chris.
Well, I mean, I'm currently limited to, at most, light assembly, which is what I do in my building. I can't do heavy industrial. And I don't think I would ever get away with trying to convince anybody to let me do it.
I understand now, okay. I'm just saying,
I mean, if the rezoning was to be for a normal commercial or regular commercial with an attached living unit, yeah, I'm all for that. But I mean, that's wanting your cake and your pie and getting to eat them both.
I don't see, but see, I'm struggling with, I don't understand why heavy industrial got singled out when there's literally like 2 heavy industrial lots in the town of Westcliff, and I'm not understanding why those were singled out as not being allowed the same rights as every other commercial type of property in town.
what are the others?
What are
But
the
I'm
others?
singled out for not being heavy commercial or heavy industrial.
So then I guess before I would want to consider asking for a rezone of that, I would need to look at what highway, I mean, but it's not on the highway, it's on Deweese Road.
Well, I understand that, but that's a definition, because it is on a highway, but we could zone it similarly.
I'd have to look and see what the options are with that and talk with Greg about that and see. And also I've got my real estate agent here and see if I think that would limit, I mean, maybe that would be much better. I can't say that right now.
Well, it seems to me like there are more. Heavy industrial is a pretty narrow category, I think, as opposed to, let's say, highway commercial, when you can do a lot of different things out there, rather than just heavy
I mean,
industrial.
that would basically allow somebody like Tim Brawl to go in with a propane filling station underneath there and somebody living in the same space. That's questionable.
Anyways, so maybe you wanna just come back.
Yeah, I will look into the difference of if this commission doesn't think that zoning a piece of ground that sits, you know, basically what, quarter mile technically off of the highway, because it's on Lake Deweese Road, could still be zoned highway commercial.
I don't see why, we can make a zone, We can do anything with zoning, but,
You don't want a spot zone.
no, we don't want a spot zone, but we could rezone it to accommodate what you're thinking about. I mean, you're not the only commercial property. You know, look at all the properties along 69 that are zoned. Of course, it's
Those are
highway, they're on the highway.
Yeah,
But we could do that. We could figure a way through that.
and I suppose since I've got 1.95 acres there, I could always leave the highway commercial as it is and come in and ask to section off part of that land and have it, I don't know, residential or something. But
Could a purchaser go up to? In other words, I would think heavy industrial is way more restrictive than a highway commercial or some other business. In other words, as long as it's a less than.
yeah, highway commercial is,
I
I
would
mean,
think.
heavy industrial is very broad.
Question, Christine.
So what are the lots that cross the
Hang on,
road?
Chris, hang on, Chris, hang on, I've got the floor here.
I'm
This
sorry.
Bob. Your property you have in Shadow Ridge, which is heavy industrial, which side is of your existing property? Is it east or north?
It's to the north,
To the north, down in the gully.
right, it's in
Down
that
the
one,
gully.
so it just said, like, if I'm looking at my shop, our shop, it says to the
Okay, I
left.
understand. So my guess is the neighbors in, if you sold it to me and I was gonna come in and put something in a spew, whatever, then I imagine they're gonna have something to say about it.
They're probably gonna
Now,
have.
my next question is, because I've been in a few industrial things in my career, is there precedent, and maybe somebody can answer this, some kind of precedent that would say that I were to buy it and it has living quarters? I've been in plants where my watchman lives there, let's say, okay, but he or she's not breathing toxic fumes all night. They won't have them there very long. So in other words, maybe it could be restricted to these classifications of any kind of toxic like things that would potentially happen. And let's say, well, that's not gonna happen in Westwood, but it can, you know.
And I can
And I
say,
don't know.
when we bought that property, when there was nothing out there, but it was supposed to be, commercial was supposed to head down Lake Louise Road back in the day, and the only thing that was out there was Myron's building. And then we bought that property. The reason why we looked at it and talking with Don Stewart at that time, that we would be able to put a trash business there where we would be able to work on trucks outside and have trucks outside and no one could really say anything about it. So I don't think it was ever our thought that there was going to be some kind of gas plant or anything, you know, paint, whatever going on out there. We were just looking at it from the standpoint of, we can work on our trucks and we can, you know, that's what, and we want to do that without breathing on our necks.
Yeah. I would suggest that to the planning commission, if we're going to, we don't want to rezone and we want to keep it heavy industrial. So special use is under the allowance of 0.39, so you'd have to be allowed through a special use permit. So I would come back with a special use permit, and then we'd have to adopt a resolution based off of a few things, right? So if we don't want it attached, or we want it attached, we can basically name off, hey, this is how big the dwelling can be, this is how far away it can be, on and on and on. So if that is the direction you're headed, that's then what we would need to do. But if we just want to outright say, sure, yes, let's do it.
Or we could rezone.
Or we can
Well,
rezone, there's a few options.
I would rather like go back and look at those options with Greg, because personally, I don't want to limit what someone, because that's a large piece of ground and I don't want to limit what someone can do there. So, but maybe the highway commercial is a viable option, and then also talk with our real estate agent, see what she feels is more like what people are needing here. But like with the special use permit, I can't speak to what a buyer might want, you know, and so, but I don't want a buyer to have to come in here and go through this just to maybe buy my property. So I will go back to the drawing board, but I will not wait as long to come back. Sorry.
We can come back next month and that'd be.
Well, and that may be, I may just put, don't do it yet, but because I need to talk to Rick, but maybe we'll do that.
Okay, you take the apple back out?
I've never used that gavel, I'm gonna start.
I think I'd argue that.
Chris has used the gavel.
I don't shy away from it, no.
No, it does not.
So, now we have, what?
State that you.
Oh, and so I will state for the record that I have stepped back onto the planning commission, at this time. So item 8 is public comment. Do we have any additional public comment to anything? Oh, my God.
Got a question for you. When you say a 7,500 feet, you talking about the footprint or the size of the building?
The footprint of the building.
So you're looking at 22,500 square feet.
No.
On a 3,000 building, 3,000, on a 3-story building is 7,500 square foot footprint, that's 22,500.
If the floors are the same size, yes.
I don't think I mean, that would be, can you put a 3-story in 35 with a height of 35?
Not really.
Well, so then.
Even still, you're looking at, if you were to go that, put a flat roof on it,
You can't
you're
do
looking
that
at
anyway.
what kind of fire protection system you're looking at.
Right, so there would be like,
That's gonna be according to code.
Okay. As far as NFPA goes, that would be a 4,000 GPM fire flow, just for the sprinklers.
Yeah.
That didn't count fire suppression from the fire department. So you gotta make sure that you've got a main that will do roughly up to 10,000 GPMs, which is gallons per minute.
Okay.
This county doesn't have any mains that do that. So that's something you need to keep in mind when you set your building sizes. I do not like and I'm a retired firefighter. I'm also on the fire board. I'm not representing them right now. This is just, I've been to, several hundred park fires.
That's an excellent point, though.
They, 0 setbacks and 0 lot lines, you're just gonna kill people.
bad, it's really that bad.
You're also going to lose,
We're not doing that.
We're not doing
Okay.
that.
No,
That was Nick.
It's the same as what's existing in the town. Everything is the same as what's existing in town. And if someone owned, which actually someone does own, like the equivalent of that many blocks in town, they by right would be able to build, if they had that amount of space, they would be able to build that kind of structure. However, what you just said is very relevant, and that would be something that even if someone came with a plan, never mind these properties, but that owns lots like that in town, absolutely, that's relevant and would have to be discussed, so
and
they.
I like that as far as looking at it from a fire suppression standpoint, the quadplexes make more sense. They're better for life safety with the infrastructure that we have here. Because what you're looking at doing, somebody mentioned putting the cart before the horse. The barn door is gonna be open. And you need to set these parameters before your developers come in. You need to speak with the SO, EMS, and fire department.
What's that, so?
Sheriff's office.
What's that?
To find out what their capabilities are right now. And right now, we're already behind the 8 ball. We don't have enough people on any of those 3 agencies to handle a big event. And you're adding to it now. So you need to make sure that the plans are in effect to bring in more law enforcement, bolster up the EMS department. And we're looking at having if you go with a bigger building like that, we're gonna have to look at big, more and costly fire apparatus. That with the current SDA thing going on right now, who knows if that's ever gonna happen, so.
One thing that I'd like to say, kind of to what you're saying there, I know that in Buena Vista and Salida, when developers come in and say like, oh, there's this land and we want to do this, that developer is required to upgrade the whatever, whether it's a sewer district, the sewer system, the existing sewer system, or they have to talk with the local agencies and have all of this in place before they're even able to come to the city and say, I would like to develop this land this way. So
unless you have that written down in ordinances, they don't have to do anything.
So
and that's one of the things, and I've been on planning commissions, I've been on city councils. Set those parameters first. If you have a subdivision coming in, make sure that they have the proper water and sewer or septic, whatever, sidewalks, green spaces. Lay that out initially before the developers come in, otherwise they will dictate to you what they're gonna do. I've seen it happen too many times. I've seen very small cities try to grow, and they have to wind up putting a building moratorium on because the fire, police, and EMS are woefully behind as far as city services, as far as streets, sewer, electricity, and light. Thank you very much.
So that makes us maybe wanna have that workshop. Maybe not today. The one that we talked about and then table.
Oh, the
That
affordable.
that may be something that we need to entertain having at some point, but not today. Or this month.
I'm going out of town here in a couple minutes.
Okay.
Leslie Parks, 85 Mineral Road. And this, some of the things that you mentioned, your statistics, that we need 400 affordable housing units or enough for 400 people?
No.
What did you say? You said 400
No,
something.
I said 400 because I was talking about what had originally been talked to us about
Okay.
way at the beginning. No, it's actually like according to the affordable housing study that was done in the whole Soda Cliff, West Cliff, and Custer County, they're saying right now we need, is it 35?
Actually, that study was just for the two towns.
Yes.
And so that was.
So the quote that I made, 40 to 50 units are urgently needed.
In the county, not necessarily just West Cliff.
In the two towns.
Okay, but not just West Cliff. That would also include Silver Cliff.
Right.
Yes, Silver Cliff.
Okay, and who did that study?
So urban renewal continuum, so the.
So it's a government agency.
No, so in 2022, 35 were needed, and then in 2027, 55 would be needed. On top of the addition, at least how I interpreted it, on top of the additional, so then it reads something like, 90 total units total, so. We've talked to all the entities, and, they pretty much agreed that, this is the right track to go, or at least last meeting, that was, the general feel of what was talked about. And if we do 40 to 50 units, that still leaves the rest of the units that other municipalities can do. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Leslie.
And are you a new alternate for planning?
I certainly am, but I have to be a regular citizen in this meeting.
Yeah, okay, but I didn't know that,
Yeah.
so thank you, great, thank you. Any other comments?
Marlos Hartbauer, 401 South 4th Street, West Cliff. I'm sorry, I'm going to apologize because I had to come in late. And I overheard something about taps for the ADUs. What about the existing homes in West Cliff that already have an ADU in their garage or their, whatever in their yard?
I would think, I mean, that's like a round mountain question. So I would think that if they allowed that to be, then I don't see how they can come back and say, oh, now you have to pay for a cap. But going forward, it's my understanding, and again, this would probably need to be double checked with the water district, that so long as your ADU is attached to your existing building, it can run under that same tap. But if it's detached, if someone wanted an ADU right now and they wanted it detached, they would have to get water and sewer, but don't quote me on that because I need to talk to them.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the case, that if it's existing, it's existing. I mean, you're kind of grandfathered in. I also have a unit like that is detached, but I have water too, and I do rent it out currently. So,
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comments? If
I
not,
move we adjourn.
Second.
motion's been made and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
hi.
It's the one that.
Yes.